quit unexpectedly. Yeah.
Can we start from this position? I'll take care of it.
Okay. You sit there and fix it.
Oh my god.
Just
Can I get the candidates for VP Finance to please come up? All right, let's start with opening statements. Nauman, would you like to start?
Yep. Hey guys, I'm Namin Gantilga. I'm business student finishing second year and major with minor in enterprise technology. My main goals are I want to draw the line between financing events, parties, raves, and financing clubs, DSUs, and bursaries. I want to clearly reallocate money to clubs and DSUs and bursaries. And I believe that accountability and transparency of Finance Office and SFSS is a key part. And for the first time in the history, I want to reveal finance information to students in more accessible and easier to understand form, as pie charts, graphs, when they will come.
Adam?
Hello everyone. So first off, I appreciate how this debate is a little bit more open, but that being said, I don't want to take days doing this. So briefly, the VP of Finance position is probably the most technical out of all the positions within the executive. I think a large part of what makes a good VP of Finance candidate is his or her experience, of which I have a lot of. Last term I worked as an accounting analyst at a fish company called Can Fisco. I recently got accepted into the BD Endowment Asset Management program here at SFU, helping manage a $5.5 million investment portfolio. So I feel like I do have a lot of experience in that. As an accounting analyst, I reconcile bank statements worth millions of dollars. I'll be doing similar sorts of things as the VP of Finance, only I won't be reconciling them, I'll be overlooking the reconciliation of bank statements. And other things that I think the VP of Finance really needs to take into consideration are, when there are deficits with, whether it be in events or with the Highland Pub, you really want to go about finding ways to rectify those. And I feel like I have a good action plan in place. Maybe we'll get into that a little bit later on in this debate. But I feel like I have clear goals, concrete goals. I'm not going to fluff around and beat around the bush here. I want to talk straight up about what I plan to do. And I think that's what makes me a good candidate. Thank you.
All right. So VP Finance, it's all about money, money, money. However, it is still a member of the board of directors. You would be a representative of the membership. So both of you focus on how you're going to allocate funds, how you're going to deal with clubs, DSUs, and all that kind of stuff. However, when you make decisions at the board table, can the membership expect you to approach problems from a purely financial perspective? Or how will you balance the conflict between the needs of the membership and the finances of the operations? What if the membership really want some sort of service, however it would drive the student society into a deficit? How do you balance that?
Well, that's a great question. I think the two are very related. Obviously, you can't put on certain events, you can't do certain services without the finances available for that. We only have really a certain amount of money that we get from student levies, which is about $40 a term that each student pays. So in terms of what we get in that type of revenue is quite fixed. I think there are certainly ways that we can increase revenue, particularly with the food and beverage service. Over the last decade, really, revenues have just been the same at around $1.5 million. I've been talking with the pub manager about ways to increase revenue. Something that they do at universities in Ontario, such as Western, is they actually rent out the Highland Pub, or sorry, they rent out their university pub rather, to private functions. often in the summer months. I found this idea quite intriguing, as the Highland Pub really isn't used a whole lot in the summertime, as there aren't as many students taking courses in the summer as there are in the fall and spring. And the pub manager suggested that to me as well. If that can increase revenue, which I think it probably would, I think having more funds available would obviously make possible the funds available to put towards increased services or events or whatever the student body wants, whatever the membership wants. But in order to do that, you really have to have the financing available. And right now, there isn't a whole lot of flexibility, so I do want to increase revenue with respect to the food and beverage service in that sense. Thank you.
So, yeah, as you said that VP Finance is not on the technical part, and I believe that VP Finance should have a lot of goals and visions about student life, and I would choose more beneficial way. And if the event is not like I'm sorry.
Do you want me to repeat the question?
Yeah.
It's pretty long. So, VP Finance money, and both of you on your platform have talked about how to manage that money or how to govern it, but you still are a representative of the membership. How do you balance the needs of the members if it can sometimes conflict with the operational limits of governing our finances?
Okay. So as I said, I would see whether it serves students in the majority of students, not just minority of students, and if it won't break even, I wouldn't allow it, honestly.
So you're saying if it was to break even, you wouldn't allow it?
No, if it wouldn't.
Oh, if it wouldn't break even,
Yeah.
you wouldn't permit it?
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Sure. Can I have a quick response question? Last year, the audited statements for the food and beverage service showed that it lost $430,000. This year, the presumed deficit isn't to be as large, but there still is a sizable deficit. With you saying that if it doesn't break even, you wouldn't have it, are you suggesting that you would close down the food and
I
beverage
didn't
services?
say about food and beverage. I said about events.
Events, okay.
Yeah.
So if it's running a deficit though, you
Yeah,
still
if
keep it
it's
open.
project on table, and I see this project, and I see that this project is not, yeah. No.
Okay.
So you've both spoken about the food and bev deficit in your platform. How exactly can you contribute to reducing the deficit? It seems like the new general manager has done a pretty good job already, with minimal interference from the board. So what makes you in particular so special?
Yep. Well, I actually, funny thing, the pub manager and I actually have a history. I used to sit with him on a planning committee at a community center back a few years ago when I was in high school. So he and I have talked a lot and have met on numerous occasions about the deficit at the pub, and indeed he has done a really good job. The audited finances of the past year haven't yet been audited, so they haven't been published yet. The deficit is believed to have decreased by at least $100 and some odd $1,000. So that's a very good job that he's done. Obviously, we want to take further steps to reduce the deficit. Right now, it's about $10 per student that funds this deficit, which to me is pretty unacceptable. And people talk about events, losing, $5,000, $10,000. To put that in perspective, to lose, around $250,000 is a pretty big deal in my opinion. So this is why it's a big priority for me. So I've already talked a little bit about one of the steps that I would do to provide, to increase revenue rather, which would be to rent out the pub in summer months when there isn't a lot of traffic, in order to, and rent it out to things like maybe wedding receptions, sports teams, parties. This is actually done in other universities as a way to increase revenue. So, say a wedding reception, they want to come in, rent it out for the evening for a couple $1,000s. Well, that's, $2,000 in revenue that we wouldn't otherwise have gotten, and do that on a number of occasions. The second point, of my plan here, also with regards to the food and beverage service as a whole, the Higher Grounds Coffee is if you don't know, it's the cafe that's kind of right in front of the Highland Pub. It can also use some improvement as well, especially since Starbucks came in. Coffee sales at the Higher Grounds have gone down a little bit. I think we should look to make that more of a food-oriented spot. I think food options are somewhat limited on campus, especially the quick bang for the buck food that's also healthy. So I was talking with the pub manager about it, and he wants to just minor renovations for stoves and whatnot to have facilities available to make not fast food but healthy food that can be made within a few minutes in between classes. And I think that would certainly increase the revenues for the food and beverage service as a whole as well. So it's really a two-point strategy for me. Thank you.
So from my side, I would suggest to rent it out to professionals that can make good events, as Donnelly Group or Blueprints, or like professional, or do wedding reception, as you said.
All right. So it seems like the ideas are kind of one-time things, whereas it's tough for candidates typically in the past to come up with solutions for long-term fixes to the food and bev operations, which is fine. Do you think the issue with food and bev is a lack of revenue or a problem with its expenditures? Different candidates in the past have said that it's about the expenditures. Staffing costs are high, overhead costs are high. Running a restaurant in general costs a lot of money. Or is it an issue, like you guys have said, about renting out the pub? But then again, the pub's for students. So what's your perspective?
Yep, well, actually, that's certainly very true. Overlooking the financial statements for the food and beverage, I know this is quite boring, but you see that revenues have been flatlining. Meanwhile, staff wages have actually been increasing. So back in 2004, 2005, staff wages were around 550, 600,000. Now they're close to 900,000. So while staff wages have been increasing, revenue has been kind of staying the same. The thing with staff wages, though, is that they're quite hard to just decrease on a whim. As a result of the collective agreement that staff up here employed by the SFSS are protected under. So it's kind of difficult to talk about decreasing staff expenditures. I think in terms of making things more efficient, I think that I'd leave that to the manager in terms of the day-to-day operations. He's done a really good job of increasing operational efficiency and decreasing the cost of goods sold. So I think he's done a good job, but in terms of the expenditures, which is actually the biggest reason for why the pub has been losing money, it's really tough to do something about that, which is why I turn to the revenue side, and I see an opportunity for increasing revenue to make up for those increased costs in staff. So I feel like there's more opportunity on the revenue side rather than attempting to cut staff costs, which would be extremely difficult to do given the collective agreement. Yeah.
It's about the question is about is the issue a lack of revenues, or is it a problem with excess expenditures with regards to food and bev services? What's your perspective on that?
I feel that it's both way, and how would I do it? I would concentrate more on making more revenues and allowed to operate pub only on certain days, so it won't be open all day, because I don't think that all students can go on Monday, Tuesday, or yeah.
So by closing, you would be decreasing its expenditures. Is that what you're proposing?
No, just closing, like closing, not operating. But if we could find external users of pub, that would be great.
All right. I want to take a step back with food and beverage services just a tad bit. Let's look at it from a broader perspective. Is it really the purview of 16 students to manage a large-scale food and beverage service? The board changes every year, and continuity is a huge issue, and that's why we have full-time staff and management to deal with that. Is it really the responsibility, or is it wise for 20-something-year-olds to run it?
Yeah, another good question. That's why I was saying in my last statement that I would leave the day-to-day operations to the pub manager. Yeah, I mean, the pub manager has been running a pub. He used to run a pub at the UBC University pub. He's been doing this for years. He knows better than I do about supply management and all that stuff with regards to pubs. I think what we have to do as the board of directors, and specifically the VP of Finance, is work with the pub manager in collaborating and making funds. Saying before about upgrading the Higher Grounds Cafe to make it more of a food destination. Well, he needs funding for that, maybe just a couple $1,000s. But if that's going to provide more revenue in the long run, it's going to be a good investment, then it's up to the VP of Finance to allocate that funding for renovations such as that. So it's a matter of collaboration and working together. The pub manager wouldn't be able to do a lot of the things without the help of the board of directors and without the help of the VP of Finance. But by no means do I think that I'm a better manager than the pub manager himself. Thank you.
So Norman, to repeat the question, what are your thoughts on 16 students running a large-scale operation? Do you think it's the responsibility of them to manage on a day-to-day basis? Because we do have full-time management, we do have staff that run the food and bev operation. So where do you find the board or maybe the VP Finance position fitting in?
I think that staff and managers should be there to help us to collaborate with them to make the best of operating pub. But we are here to learn. We're all students, and I see the great, huge power of SFSS, and that they give us opportunity, like university give us opportunity to run society, to create events, to create clubs, to make our lives better, university life. Yeah.
Okay. So let's switch gears and move on to the resource side of the student society. You both talk about overseeing expenditures. Any thoughts on increasing revenues to the student society's operating budget? So the clubs and DSU side, the advocacy side, the event side, ignoring food and beverage services. How do you have any ideas for increasing the revenues? Or is your platform or your goal simply just to oversee expenditures?
Yep. As VP Finance, we are representing contractor side. So we are seeking for sponsorships for pub events, like pub events, DSUs. We are seeking for external users and sponsors from outside. And as I tell that, I want to target external users to rent out the pub and to rent out the space. Yeah.
Anything for the resource side of the student society? You mentioned the pub. Like, how can the board increase its revenues for its operating budget? Its operating budget, yeah, the general operating budget that pays for the advocacy events that we have. It pays for the larger events that are not tied to the pub. It pays for the club core funding, club grants. Any thoughts on that?
I think that we should, that VP Finance should reallocate more efficiently money between internal.
So for you, it's all about overseeing the expenditures.
No, but making more money, revenues.
So what are your ideas on that? If you have ideas to increase revenues for the operating side, what would that be?
I don't think that from internal side that we could increase from general office increase revenues, but from the other side that we could get sponsorship, get involved with clubs and pub events. Yep.
Okay, Adam?
Well, I think by the very nature of the SFSS organization, it is a difficult task to increase revenues, especially if you exclude possible revenues from the food and beverage service. The operating budget is mostly made up of the student levy, which again is about $40 a term and accounts for maybe 2.3 million, 2.4 million of the operating budget. You also make some revenues with the general office and the copy center, maybe about, I think, $200,000 there, so quite a negligible amount compared to the student levy. In terms of where we could increase revenue, I think, like Nauman was saying, sponsorship, but more specifically, sponsorship to do with, right now we have a company called NewAd, which is responsible for getting sponsorship for advertising throughout the school. It doesn't have to be in the pub, it can just be anywhere, like in bathrooms and stuff. You might see little logos. I think that there's some potential there. I think maybe we could perhaps even find a new agency to replace NewAd to increase sponsorship, to increase advertising around the school. I think that would produce or increase some revenues there. Similarly with events, I'm actually the sponsorship officer for the Spring Send-Off concert. So I think with regards to events, which should always break even, I think sponsorship is a must, and we must always look to increase revenues by looking to sponsorship to provide that. But yeah, and there's no way we're going to increase the student levy, obviously, and it would be very difficult to increase revenues from the copy center or general office. So I think sponsorship is pretty much the way to go. Yeah.
Adam, you mentioned the student activity fee, which hasn't really changed in a while in terms of the general operating.
Yeah.
Is it sufficient currently?
I don't think we're going to make many friends by raising the student levy. I think most students are kind of irked at the SFSS maybe not providing enough bangs for its buck already, and increasing that levy really is just going to hurt the reputation of the SFSS and might even spark some protests, you know. So I don't think that, you know, it has been fixed for a while. I think, again, if we can look to increase revenue, which I think there really is a strong opportunity to make at least another $150,000, $200,000 in revenue through my ideas, that I think would cover any increased costs that we might incur over the next several years. And they're not just one-offs; they'd be sustainable increases in revenue. They'd be staying there, like with my ideas for the food and beverage services. They wouldn't just be one-offs. They'd be there for, you know, that would be a food spot at the higher grounds. There'd be more food coming out of there every day for years to come. So I think they're long-term solutions to increase revenue.
What about you, Nani? What do you think of the current student activity fee that the Student Society charges?
I'm definitely against of increasing the fees.
Can you elaborate? Maybe not an increase, but do you think it's currently enough? Should it be decreased maybe, or?
No, I think it's good. Like, it's a good amount of money that have been invested in SFSS. But my part of answer is that SFSS don't give back money that students have been invested. And as current student, I don't see a big part of what they've done. And after doing my campaign, I realized that most students don't know what is SFSS is doing, what is for, why is there, and why they're paying money.
So then what are your thoughts on other fees that we charge? For example, the health and dental plan fee, that's on the ballot this year. Students also pay fees to non-SFSS groups, which isn't necessarily the purview of the SFSS, but what do you think about those fees?
About health dental plan, I was thinking that they should have been increased, but they increased. I thought that people should choose basic plan and they should themselves add on services. For example, if you want a premium, you can add on in your fees. Yeah. If people are ready to pay more, then they can pay more, and not just automatically to opt in everyone. You know what I mean?
Do you want to?
Well, yeah, that's exactly what's on the ballot. Is you know, the first question is going to be: are you in favor of giving students the option of choosing a basic plan, which is for the current fee, or the enhanced plan, which is $255, which covers a greater array of benefits? You know, instead of 60% dental, it's 70% dental and whatnot. So that's what is actually on the ballot for this referendum. The second question of the referendum has to do with a maximum of a 5% increase to the health and dental plan each year for the indefinite future. And I've researched this extensively, actually, and wrote an article in the Peak about it. The reason being behind this is that our health and dental provider, Desjardins, faces inflation, and they say an projected increase in claims. Their option, it's pretty much like an ultimatum. It's either we pay at a maximum 5% more each year, or we get our benefits scaled back. And in fact, our benefits have been scaled back 3 times since the health and dental plan launched in 2008. So it's either we pay a little bit more and receive the same, or pay the same and receive a little bit less. And sorry, one more thing with regards to those extra things that get the levies that students are paying for. A big one is Build SFU. I'm sure you've heard it around campus, and we had there was a survey, you know, which location do you want to choose. That is a really big project. That's going to be a $65 million project. I think students should, we paid a $10 levy at the start of this year for it, and the levies will be increasing over the next, I think, 25, 30 years. So I think that's a project that I think students might want to research into a little bit. It's going to be a big one, and although we're not really we're probably going to graduate, most of us, by the time it's being built, it's still a very important thing for the legacy of SFU. Yeah.
Can I ask you?
Yeah, go ahead.
About Build SFU, you mentioned that you want to lobby the government about Build SFU, and what have you done so far? How will you prepare for this?
I'm not in, well, I haven't done anything in terms of lobbying. I'm not in the SFSS, so I really have no clout with the government. But it's certainly a project that I want to work with. I've researched the situation. It's a quite complicated situation. I'm not going to, relay all the information. It's going to take too long. It has to do with financing the building. Trying to get financing for the student union building from a bank is going to be particularly hard, considering that we don't really have as strong a financial backing as other, as more formal institutions, if you will. The interest rates that we pay would be quite substantial as well. So what we're currently trying to do is sign a keep well agreement with the university, which would act as kind of a financial supporter in case we weren't able to make the payments. It's really a long process, but at the end of the day, it's all about decreasing the costs that SFU students have to pay for the student union building, trying to minimize that. And another way we can do that also, again, has to do with sponsorship, looking for sponsors to come in and advertise in the student union building. That's also another way we can decrease costs for SFU students. So lower interest and lower costs through sponsorship. Thank you.
Did you ask anyone from SFSS what they have done? Like, who is currently working on it? Do you know?
Chardet's doing, I saw a letter from Chardet. So that is one thing that I've seen, and I praise her for that, and it's a good project to continue working on in the future.
I just want to, before we move on to Build SFU, I do have questions about that. So it seems like judging from your responses from both of you about the health and dental plan, how the fee is going to increase, however, there's more value in it. It seems like you wouldn't be opposed to increasing fees if there was value for the student. So how do you bring value to the fees we already charge? How do you bring value to the student that pays the SFSS?
Okay, so first of all, as an executive of board of directors, I want to make sure that everything what students pay, it's been invested in something useful and valuable. It's not supposed to be only financing raves and club and pub nights, and I want to create more emphasis on clubs and DSUs, and I know what work they've done. I attended a lot of networking events in our BD Business School, and they're making amazing events that where you can meet new employers that seeking for students. I'm sorry, I'm just not native speaker. I'm from Ukraine. I'm sorry. I apologize that networking events. Yep.
Well, I think with this particular question, I think the strength of our slate really goes a long way. I'm currently working with our presidential candidate, Brandon Chapman, who I know is an excellent project manager who's able to get things done. And I think that's definitely a characteristic of our ACE slate, is the ability to overlook the minute details, or look at the details, but with a perspective for the bigger picture, is what I mean to say, and to not get caught up in the small stuff, but look towards maximizing value, like you said, to SFU students. And right now we're working on a spring send-off concert, which I believe is maximizing value for SFU students. It's projected to break even. It's going to be a very fun event, which really goes a long way to increasing SFU's profile, making it a more fun place for students. So I think this is an excellent example of how our ACE slate is maximizing value. And I think a large part of maximizing value as well has to do not only with project management, but also with efficiencies from within the SFSS. And specifically to the VP of Finance, I sit in on numerous weekly FAST meetings, and I see that the way they reallocate items within each department, it's almost like each department is separate from the rest, and they operate, as silos. What I plan to do is create a more integrated system between the departments. So say Department 17, which, the communications department is asking for, $5,000 to $10,000 increase in new computers. Well, that $5,000 to $10,000 has to come from somewhere. So we have to look at things as a whole. Which department is that going to come from? Is it going to come from the communications department itself? Is it just going to be reallocated within the department, or is it going to come from another department? And if so, that department needs to know, and we need to involve all departments. We need to be integrated and act as a whole. Only then can we maximize value and can we increase efficiency. And I know those sound like fluffy terms, but it's true. We really need to operate as a more integrated whole rather than a system of 20 different parts, which is how it kind of currently operates.
Let me ask you. So you're like, I see you're only one who's not talking about pub events, but all members in ACE, they're only emphasizing on events. And how would you oppose that?
Well, the extent to my experience with events, I've done events, in high school. I was, student council president, so I organized school dances and whatnot. So I have experience in event planning and whatnot. As for the members of our slate, specifically, you're saying, we're an event-focused slate, and I don't really understand the gist of the question.
Yes. What about clubs? What about clubs?
What about,
DSUs? What about
renting out
bursaries?
the space?
Yeah.
Right, renting out the space. I think the way it runs currently, more or less, is acceptable. Right now, when a club is looking to rent the space, often there's cover charged, and that goes towards the departmental student union or the club using the space, and then people come in and buy alcohol, and that goes towards the pub. Seeing as we're kind of all under one umbrella, I don't really have too much of a problem with that system the way it is. I've heard problems with renting out the Highland pub space and logistical things like that. I'm not going to get entangled in all those specifics. I don't really feel like that's within my purview as a VP of Finance. I'm not going to be so much focused on the event planning part of events, but just oversee them financially and make sure that they do break even, as that is a staple of my platform, and that's something that if there's an event that comes onto our table and it's projected to lose, $50,000, let's say, there's no way I'm going to endorse it. But if I can see that it's going to break even, give or take 1,000 or whatever, I think we should be in support of it, because that SFU is lacking community right now, and we need more events to spice things up and make SFU a livelier campus. But then again, it still needs to break even. So I think this upcoming spring send-off is, again, a perfect example of that. We're projected to break even, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Okay, wait, but what about clubs? If right now we are short of money and there are a lot of projects that clubs want to do, but they don't have money and SFSS cannot fund them. What about them? But you have a lot of money to put in a concert.
That's not true. We're not funding any deficit with the concert. Again, like I said, since this is projected to break even, we're not actually funding any real deficit with any student money whatsoever. So it's not as if we're using student money to fund the deficit there. With regards to, I guess what you're talking about is granting for clubs and DSUs and whatnot. And I noticed in your platform you talk about increasing funds available to DSUs and to clubs as well. I asked, where's the money going to come from? You have to have the money there in the first place in order to spend it. And again, I'm not at all in favor of increasing the student levy. If we get more money with the food and beverage service, then there are more funds available that way. Then we can start thinking about increasing funding for clubs and DSUs through granting. But as it currently stands, there isn't a whole lot of flexibility within the budget. We do have a restricted surplus in the budget, but in the financial statements, you'll see restricted surplus. That's only supposed to be used in case of emergency, so that's really kind of off the table. I don't really see right now in terms of increasing funding for clubs and student unions, we have to have the funding available to do that. But once we do, it certainly is an option. And sorry, one more thing with regards to the criteria in which we grant, I think we could also open ourselves up a little bit to looking at the bigger picture with regards to grants that come in from DSUs and clubs. Maybe right now, maybe it's too much of a narrow focus in terms of just how many members are in each DSU or in each club. And I think we maybe should look at, if a club is looking for some money to do an event, look at the event as a whole and assess it and say, is this going to really maximize value for the members of those clubs? How much work have they put in to organizing this event? And ultimately those things go towards, do they deserve the money for the event? So I think we could also be revising the criteria for grants a little bit more as well.
Yeah.
Let's get back to Build SFU. It's a pretty hot topic. A lot of candidates talk about sponsorship for Build SFU. Now, it would be unreasonable for the student society to ask for sponsorship without a bargaining chip. What would you offer up for sponsorship for the SFU? What can the society offer?
30,000 students that will walk past the halls, walk through the halls. That's a pretty big bargaining chip, I would think. You know, especially for companies that have a vested interest in higher education. This is, you know, a fairly sizable campus with a large population. I think the bargaining chip is quite clear. It's, you know, there's a population here of students that are hopefully going to be using the student union building in great numbers. So it just really has to do with space. I mean, you know, why does Remax put their name on hockey boards at hockey games, right? Well, people will see it. 18,000 people come to Canucks games and they look at the boards. Sort of the same sort of logic here with the student union building. You plaster a company name up, not to take over, you know, a huge amount of space, but that's a way we can increase revenue and decrease the cost for SFU students. So I think it just has to do with sheer numbers here.
So does that mean that the membership can expect something along the lines of Gold Corp Student Union Building?
I don't plan on changing the name of the student union building. I think that's going too far, and that takes away from the integrity of the student union building. Take what I say with, you know, it's in moderation with regards to sponsorship. We don't want to be paying through the teeth for the student union building. We want to try to minimize costs where we can. I'm not talking about renaming the student union building. I'm talking about you know, minimal signage, logos in certain places of the student union building in order to bring in sponsorship money, which I think is going to be worth it for SFU students.
And it's plus companies' reputation that will grow up. Like they invested money in student building, student society building. It's about reputation.
What about your perspectives on sponsorship?
That employers are looking for new students, and employers looking into the university to find students, to find talents, and we can help them to reach the line and make more connections for. Like,
so you're talking about employment for students, or companies having a presence physically in the building? Is that what you're getting at? Or I don't fully understand.
No, you mean the sponsorship, right? And you're saying how will companies will benefit from
well, I'm asking about your overall perspective. How can we get sponsorship? What can we offer potential sponsors? How can we convince someone to sponsor the Build SFU project?
I think it's just building a relationship with the students, with the new prospective employees that can work, and we know that SFU students are good and they have academic excellence and they're competitive in the job market.
So that means jobs for students, jobs for our membership. Does that mean physical spaces in the student union building for a sponsor? How does that work?
No, it's just increasing their reputation in SFU.
But how do we increase the reputation? Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm asking you how you can convince maybe a company to come and offer money, and you're saying we can increase the reputation of a company. But how do we do that? What does that mean? Does that mean an office for them? Does it mean their logos everywhere? Does it mean the sign?
No, it's just building relationship between us and them. As a student society, as a bridge between students and us. We know a lot of, we will know a lot of students that we can connect with employers. And that's what they're looking for talents.
So promotions of those companies through the society?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we've gone for about half an hour now. Are there any remaining questions you guys have for each other?
Yeah, can I ask you questions? Thanks. Okay, we see the trends of concert coming each semester. So should we expect a concert in the summer? And how do you feel about finances, or it was just political game that ACE team played and created? And we see that your whole ACE team are managing Korean concert because it's really coincidental that it takes place right after elections. Can you comment on that?
If it took place before, maybe you have a point, but this is after the election, so I don't really see the logic there. Well, I mean, yes, most of our A slate is working on the concert. We've worked on something together. We know each other. We're good with working with each other. We're friends now. I think that's what makes us even stronger as a slate, is the fact that if we get elected, we've all had experience in working with a project together, and I can't really say the same for Move the Mountain.
But what about conflict? There should be always a conflict of
course
interest,
there's conflict. Yeah,
because
yeah,
you
of
are not
course.
going to improve yourself, right?
That's part of project management. Yeah, I'll say, hey, Brandon, should we get a sponsor for this table for $1,500? And he'll say no, $1,250, and I'll say, really? Okay, well, fine. That's a conflict. So of course you have, right? I mean, conflicts are just a part of things, and if we get elected as a slate, yeah, of course we'll have conflicts. We're not all going to be jolly ho for every single thing that someone says. Conflicts are a part of the process. Now, the first part of your question, are we going to have a summer concert? No, there's not enough students in the summertime, so that's just not feasible. There is talk of another fall concert in the works, and I am tentatively in favor of that. We are getting better at throwing concerts. The first time you do something, you're probably not going to be very good at it, but the second, third, fourth time, you're going to improve. And we're seeing drastic improvements with our efficiency in managing the concert. The first time, we lost a little bit of money. The second time, we're not going to lose any money, most likely. And the third time, again, we're going to keep on improving and making things better and better. And that's what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
But why could you... But why couldn't you make Fall Kickoff just an annual event, and you could put all money from special events into it and put all your strengths and prepare yourself so good that you could have revenue?
You think we should be doing a better job of preparing for concerts?
No.
Sorry.
I mean that why couldn't you do a Fall Kickoff as annual?
As an annual event? I hope so.
Just one concert per year.
Oh, just one instead of two?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on what the market wants. I mean, if we can break even for a fall kickoff concert and then break even for a spring send-off concert, I don't see any reason why we couldn't do two in a year. I think it's working out fine. I think maybe in terms of the amount of time and resources the board spends on it, I think that's something we might want to take a look at, and maybe outsourcing some of the operations to various committees that aren't maybe within the board of directors. Obviously our time is something that we want to use carefully here. But in terms of just doing, so I think the question is, why don't we do one instead of two? Again, it's a matter of the students want.
But Fall Kickoff lost ton.
Yeah, I lost some money. Yeah. But this time it's not. So I think we're improving. We're getting better. I mean, it was the first time we've ever done a concert like this since the Canon concert, which is completely unrelated.
But why couldn't you put your own money and all your strengths into Fall Kickoff? Just Kickoff,
only the Fall Kickoff concert?
But why could you? Why didn't you do it right? You made it right before finals, and made it right after elections, right?
Yeah. Well, with regards
to doesn't make any sense.
Well, we've sold at least 750 tickets. We're well on our way to a good attendance number, so I don't think that's really a problem. And again, as long as it breaks even, we don't really have any problems. As long as the event goes off without a hitch, which I'm sure it won't. It's going to be a great event. We have everything planned, and we've been selling tickets at a very good pace, much better than the Fall Kickoff concert even, and we expect to continue to sell a large amount of tickets in the remaining weeks. So I don't think it being before finals, it's the last day of classes, Friday, April 4th. It's my first finals on the 13th, and I think a lot of people's finals are a few days after that. So it's not a problem. Just clearly by looking at the stats, it's not a problem. And then with regards to being after the election, I don't really see the point there. So.
Just final question, more general question about your slates before we do closing statements. Move the Mountain might not sweep, they might not take over the entire board. You might not have a full Move the Mountain board, and likewise for ACE, you might not have a full ACE board. But let's say, for example, let's start with you, Norman. What if Move the Mountain has majority? Does that mean the membership can expect all other ideas to be overridden?
Oh no. Oh no. That's why we are running. That's why we are running. We want to hear minority and present majority. It doesn't mean that we're gonna exclude someone that if he doesn't agree with our point of view, because we want to have conflict. We want to improve. If you have a conflict, you will improve. And if some of ACE people will be in our board, I'll be so friendly to them because I want to create friendly society where everyone in the board will be accountable and transparency and accountability of SFSS. That should be in our society.
Yep. Well, a lot has been made about this year's election having two slates. Like Democrats, Republicans, Liberals, Conservatives sort of feel to it. It's kind of funny. I don't remember ever seeing something like this in my time at SFU, and I've been going here 3 years. So I think a lot of people are talking about it. It's getting people excited, and I see more people at debates than I remember being in previous years. So it's certainly engaging the student population, which I think is definitely a step in the right direction. My rationale behind joining ACE was that I feel like we're like-minded. Again, we've worked on things together in the past, the spring send-off being the most notable. So I have experience working with them, whereas I don't with Move the Mountain. That being said, it doesn't mean that I strongly dislike or disagree with the views of Move the Mountain, and that I'm not going to work with them if I'm elected. That's not what it means. I will look to work with whoever is on the board in the most cohesive way possible and make my views known as well, but by no means does it mean that I'm going to be am I going to put up a fight at every turn. I just feel like with joining a slate, it allows people within that slate to utilize each other's networks, and it allows you as a slate to come up with a concrete platform that you all stand for. And I certainly believe that ACE is the slate that I feel like I fit with the most, and I feel like ACE will be the slate that gets the most done and that maximizes the value for SFU students.
All right, let's move on to closing statements.
Okay. My statement to students, guys, it's your university and it's your life, and you should make a right decision for people who care about you and who feel the most for you and who can face real problems. For all candidates that I run with them, please make it work. Please, people are fed up with what's going on right now in the society. And stop closing your eyes on real problems and face real problems. No one mentioned that there will be 30% up in tuition for international students, and no one is working on it because no one cares. You care only about events, or there is a lot of things that should be done in this SFSS. And you can make it. You have a huge power, huge power. In the history of SFSS, we've done biggest strike against of tuition increases. Where all this gone? Right now, we see annual increase in tuition, and SFSS created UPass program, health dental plan for international students, just for students. You can make it work. Please do your best, SFSS, who is going to be elected anyway.
Well, yeah, that certainly seems to be a theme with the other slate, is about rising tuition rates, and people do display some concern, as do I. But at the same time, there are certain things that are quite hard to control. With regards to tuition, that's something that's more within the purview of the school and the provincial government rather than the student society. There are things that we can advocate for, but it's going to be extremely difficult to fight the tuition hikes for international students and to fight the 2% increases for domestic students. So I want to focus on the things that we can control and the things that we can do to make SFU life better for students. Again, just to reiterate my platform, I plan on increasing revenue with the food and beverage service in order to decrease the deficit that students pay. $10 per student that's being wasted essentially is not acceptable in my books. I want to decrease that. Again, with Build SFU, I want to decrease the costs to students through finding creative ways for sponsorship for the building and in minimizing interest rates that we have to spend. I also want to make the SFSS a more integrated unit, act as a whole rather than each department only thinking about themselves. And with regards to technical proficiency and just doing the grunt work, which there is actually quite a bit of for the VP of Finance, I'm more than qualified for this job. I've worked as an accounting analyst. I'm a part of the BD Endowment Asset Management program currently. I love working with numbers. And I feel like I'm definitely a person that can work well with others as well. So I feel like I'm more than qualified. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Okay, we're just going to take a 5-minute break and then we'll move on to VP External Relations.
Are you going to Cheese Bagel?
Cheese bagel, yeah. Cheese bagel, double what size?
Medium large, I love medium size.
You want coffee? Got it, okay.
What's your stuff?
What do you got?
Do you want your other? Yeah, let's keep it. I don't really want to forward anyways. I have like 2 extra packs.
There's stuff in A and B though, because I'm just kind of going in between what. Yeah, probably. I don't Let's drop it down the bottom. I like saving spot. Yeah, I just like met a guy CPA. And like, manager. I got
I wasn't like, I didn't talk too fast, like, crazy or anything, so I think people like, were pretty receptive, but I definitely wasn't as much there were 6 people running for my position, so I still remember it's so I really hope it's something else. Anything that I can do no matter what happens is kind of cool. Like I met a lot of people and kind of learned how everything works a little bit. Now I know, right?
You get some people
Exactly. So what is your question about?
Just one. If I'm endorsing
Original candidates are allowed to endorse.
Yes.
I don't think referenda is allowed to endorse you back. I don't think that's it. I can double check on their registration.
It's more getting that investigation and how
Great. I'll pretty much Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'm just send me an email and then help you guys out. See ya.
That's the closest you get in building a house, but being their own opportunities. That's the closest you get. I got the house like 10 years and everything.
Hi. Good. How are you?
full screen everywhere, man. Good job. Good job. Yeah, let me know if you oh yeah, I'm totally yeah, just let me know. Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, I'm totally fine. The way I am, yeah, for yeah, sounds good. It's gonna be like so I'm a senior in 7-7. Yeah. To be honest, like the way it's word has the way it's just like fun. So all the videos, all the no, don't worry. Regardless if you win or lose, yeah, as long as sounds good.
Okay, this is our 1-minute warning. We'll be starting back up very soon.
Can you delete the finance section of the questions?
Next we will call the external candidates, Darwin and Kathleen.
Are we not doing that on time? Or as everyone else? Or are we cutting on time to...
Haven't been really doing shit all the time.
Yeah, that's why I was
So
wondering. Are we
we're trying to shave it down by maybe 10 minutes if possible.
So we're gonna have 10 minutes less than that?
We'll see how far we get. If he did have more people, then
Right, yeah, I know everyone's... Yeah, okay.
yeah, go to the other sides. Are you guys ready?
Excuse me, this is where I turn in the question. Yes. Thank you very much.
So welcome back. Thank you for bearing with us while we took a break and sorted out some issues with the stream and whatnot. Thank you so much for being here once again. Moving on to the VP External Relations position, we have Darwin and Kathleen. So let's just start off real quickly. Just present your platform and your introduction. Darwin, can you begin?
Hello everyone, my name is Darwin. I'm a third-year history major and a business minor, and I hope to be a very strong voice for every student at our society. I feel like my long-standing and diverse experience over the years makes me a strong candidate for the VP external position. I hope to bring this diverse experience and versatile skill set to the table and hopefully work well with the team so that we can continue building on the great work the society is already doing. I really hope to have the honor and privilege of representing all of you as an executive director. Please understand that a vote for me is a vote for long-standing experience and proven leadership. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Kathleen. I'm running for the position of VP External Relations. I just want to thank you all for coming out. I know it's been a pretty long 2 hours, so hopefully we can really keep it on track here. I really am running because I really want to try and create a more inclusive and open environment where it's easy for students to share their opinions, access information. I do have executive experience. I've done a lot of events in the past, not so much at SFU as it is only my first year here, but I am a third-year student, so I do have a lot of experience in regards to that. I sit on the advocacy committee. Well, I don't sit on the advocacy committee. I call myself a permanent guest just because I do love going to the meetings and just being involved as much as I can. I've learned a lot from the team. I've learned a lot from our current external relations officer. This information is just really vital to make sure the person that fulfills the VP External Relations position is really fulfilling the portfolio and like the duties involved. One thing I know that has come up a lot in the debate right now is the idea of sponsorship, and I just want to make sure people know that if sponsorship is something that if sponsorship is something that the student body and the board would like the external relations officer to fulfill, I would make sure that all our corporate affiliation is in line with AP 15, which is the policy that the SFSS has in regards to corporate sponsorship. So that just is just to reiterate the fact that to make sure that we always have ethical sponsorship here at SFSS.
So to the both of you, your goal as VP External Relations would be to bring the student society into the public eye and relate externally. So can you speak to how you do that?
That's a very good question because the external position does a lot of work with public relations, including within the university itself with our students as well as outside, which obviously the word external implies. For me, it's very important that people have a sense of identity of what the student society is and what it does. There are obviously a lot of services that are offered, and it is a services organization which is for nonprofit. At the same time, it is also a governance organization which handles all these things. This is why we have elections. Having said that, I feel like the best way to continue doing what we're doing and exposing ourselves to the public with that identity is to follow the same track that we are so far. It's important for us to continue doing our events and continue doing our advocacy initiatives, not only for our students, but in a way that other people can see what we're doing. So people can look at our student society and our university saying that this is something really fantastic and the students there are doing a fantastic job.
All right, so to repeat the question, your goal as VP External would be to bring the student society into the public eye and relate externally. So how would you do that?
Okay, so first of all, I really think that we really need to promote collective action here at SFU. We have over 30,000 students here, the majority of which who I talked to didn't really know what the SFSS does in terms of the power that they have and the power that we could have together if we work together to effectively lobby organizations and such as like the provincial government. I really think it's important that we work together so external organizations know that SFU students are actually a force to be reckoned with. In terms of making sure that students know about the SFSS, something I would really like to do underneath my point about inclusion and open dialogue is to work with the VP of Student Life to create an SFSS ambassador / volunteer program. So something that I know myself and some of the other candidates have been doing is doing a lot of one-on-one conversations with students. And I really think that's been the most effective in the terms of making sure students know what the SFSS is and that elections are going on. So I think if we had a group of students who are kind of dedicated to doing that one-on-one outreach is a way that we can really promote the society and make sure people know what the SFS is, and in turn we can promote ourselves to external organizations as well.
Okay, thank you. Darwin. Yeah, I was going to ask you to add to that, so.
Yeah, I would like to add to that, and I think it's really important that we continue reaching out to our students as best we can. A lot of candidates talked about transparency and giving students opportunities to get involved. And after speaking with Sade about her role in the position, I looked at the work report, and something that surprised me was that the work report was offered in a text format. And I think it would have been really interesting if it was offered in an oral format with some sort of video recording or sound recording for students who may be visually impaired as well, so that they could also participate. And in line with that, I'd also like to add points regarding how we can better reach out to our students, as I pointed out on my platform, through social media. Obviously, not every student uses social media, but having said that, a majority of people in general do. And regardless of which campus students are on, if a majority are using social media, by extension, you can target students on multiple campuses through one ad, or one sponsored event, or one page, and that way people from different campuses could see that and then learn from it as a result.
So I just want to again point out that the SFSS does have Facebook pages, Twitter pages. We are supposed to send out an email newsletter to our students to make sure they do know about events, and this is why I really think that the outreach program wouldn't just be at Burnaby, just so I can clarify. It would be at all three campuses, and while I do really see the value of social media, I think based on my conversations with students, they've often said that, we get a lot of emails. I get a lot of emails. This is what, when I tell them that, voting is happening through SFU email, they say, I don't really check my email all that often. I don't really look at a lot of the emails I get. So we are using social media to reach out to students. It's just, I think, a matter of making sure that we do it in a more targeted way. And I think that's something you pointed out on your platform. But I'm just wondering, I guess it's okay if I ask a question? Yeah. I'm just wondering how you plan on, I guess, doing differently than what we're doing right now. Like how do you plan on outreaching to students through social media?
That's a very good question. I'm glad it was asked, because right now we have a communications coordinator who's on staff, as well as a social media coordinator who is on staff as well. And for me, it's very important to work with both of these people so we can continue improving the process. I think in everything the society does, there's always going to be some kind of room for improvement. For me personally, what I've noticed is that a lot of the ads and the work done is through the main SFSS page, which is great. But what I'd like to add to that is anytime a club does an event or a DSU does an event, or there are other initiatives on campus, I feel like promoting those initiatives in and of themselves, aside and including the main page, would help bring people not only from the top page down, from the bottom up as well, which would ultimately obviously add a more complete outreach program.
Okay, thank you to the both of you. We've been talking about reaching out to students, outreach for that, making them aware of what's going on, spreading the word about what the society is doing, but historically, the External Relations officer, or now VP External Relations, has reached out to organizations outside of SFU and outside of society on behalf of students. So advocacy, can we speak about advocacy? Kathleen, you mentioned you're on the advocacy committee. Would you like to begin?
So if I can just clarify the question, are you asking who we would outreach to, or?
Sorry, yeah, so the question would be, you've both mentioned reach out to students, but how would you balance that with reaching out on behalf of students to organizations and advocating on their behalf?
Okay, so in terms of advocating or liaising with external organizations, I guess something I've mentioned in my platform is that I do really want to do some more lobbying to the provincial government, the municipal government, to improve our funding so we can get deferred maintenance, funding for deferred maintenance, more funding for our transit system. Something else I really would like to do is look into addressing our food accessibility issues here at SFU. Especially with the closure of the food bank. I have already looked into reaching out to different food banks across the Metro Vancouver area and local nonprofits such as Quest Food Exchange and the Greater Vancouver Food Society. I'm definitely looking to work with these organizations so we can build more consultation and figure out solutions that reduce stigmatization of hunger on campus. So those are the types of organizations that I really would like to reach out to so we can make our society a better place for students.
just repeat that question.
So what sort of advocacy would you be doing as external relations, and how would you balance that with your outreach to students? Would you focus more on one or the other, or how would you balance that?
Well, ultimately, I'm a student representative, and as far as I've known after speaking with the executive director and other staff, it's been a very long time since the society as a whole asked questions to students, what do you want from us? What do you think we should be doing? What do you think we do now? It's been a very long time since those questions have come up, and for me to properly advocate for students, I need to hear what they want. I need to hear what's important to them. I think the current advocacy initiatives would all be very important to students. Money is obviously an issue, hunger, like Kathleen mentioned, also an issue. Open textbooks is another very good example, which was mentioned today and yesterday as well. But for me, I think it's very important that we focus on our students and ask them what they want from us as a society as a whole.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. I mean, before I even decided to run for this position, I conducted a survey and asked students, you know, what do you care about? What do you want to change at SFU? And when I built my platform, that's what I used to build my platform, was after consultation with some students. I asked them what they would like to see change at SFU, and that's where, you know, a lot of my ideas from my platform came to be and how I built, and that's kind of how I decided to prioritize my advocacy initiatives that I've put forward.
Yeah, and just to further add to that as well, I mean, I've been a representative of students for over 2 years now, and through that work, I've really gotten to see the kinds of things students need, particularly in the arts faculty, of course. But for me, I have a lot of experience already reaching out to students, already representing them, already trying to give them what they need. And naturally, I'm not perfect, but I'm hoping to continue improving, because for me, it's very important that I can give them what they need in the most efficient way possible. There are 25,000 students here, and a lot of people are talking about outreaching to these people, how to hear what they want and what to do. And for me, I look at Build SFU as a base model. Build SFU conducted surveys this year which received 4,000 responses, which is more than any referendum question received. And at the same time, it's more than we've had in elections prior. And I think using that as a base model to start talking to students and asking them questions will be a very effective start.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify, SFU actually has 30,000 students. I have the enrollment report right here. So it is 30,000.
I think it's 25,000 undergrads.
Yeah, yeah, it says undergraduate headcount by faculty, if you want to look at it. But yeah, so, but I completely agree that that I think I really applaud your work as SAS president, but I really think that it's important to make sure that we have all students represented, and I think that's great that you really represent arts and social science students, which is, I mean, I myself is an arts and social science student, but I think it's also really important to outreach to groups of other faculties, especially those not on the Burnaby campus. I know we have a lot of students at Surrey. We have, I think there's about 3,500. I could probably double check those numbers if you would wish me to do so. And having those that outreach program to make sure that students are aware about what's happening with the SFSS on all 3 campuses is something that's really important. I know, again, during this campaign, I've really tried to take my survey and continuously ask students what they want to do. And yeah.
Yeah, I think those are all excellent points as well, and I think what suits me as a representative is the fact that I'm already representing now. I'm already doing a lot of this work as it is, and I feel like the diversity I have from my experience allows me to bring more to a diverse position. I have experience doing social life. I have experience with academic events, establishing scholarships, spearheading activities. Working on all these things gives me a diverse portfolio for a diverse position. Depending on the goals of the board and what the board wants to do, the external relations portfolio will differ in accordance with those goals. So for me, I think having that diversity allows me to bring more to the table regardless of which other candidates are elected. Because at the end of the day, no matter what the goals are, I feel like I'm ready to accomplish them in any facet.
Now, Darren, with the experience that you're referring to, is that mostly SAS, the Society of Arts and Social Sciences?
That would be mostly with the Society of the Arts and Social Sciences. I've been working very hard there. At the same time, I have other experience as a leader as well. I've done orientation training. I've been a part of charity organizations which have done a lot of work in the community, spearheading those projects as well. I've worked a lot with volunteers. I've worked a lot on events, like I said.
Well, I asked about SAS because SAS does have a very important question coming up during this election. And as president, how well do you feel you've represented SAS to the student body in terms of getting this referendum passed? I've seen one poster walking from our offices to the debate. Do you feel like you could have done more in terms of representing the organization that you're president of?
That's a very good question, and I feel like for me, SAS is a team, and we've all been working for a very long time. That's not to say that I'm not doing my job. I feel like my work is more on physically campaigning with people. I think of myself as a good speaker, and I feel like for me to talk to people, and also participating in the elections. I mean, I've been approaching several candidates from all sides, and independents as well, to try and reach out to them and explain the importance of this. These are the people who are really involved. This is why I'm participating in all kinds of different events across this campus, so I can reach out to the different groups personally and try and get them to vote as well. Having said that, campaigning is not over for the SAS referendum, and I hope you all stay tuned.
Both of you mentioned TransLink in your... you can, sorry.
I'm just wondering, so when you said you're reaching out to different groups, are these groups that are already really involved and active on campus, or people that are already really involved, or?
Also a good question. For me, there's obviously the people who are involved, who are doing things right now. For example, Relay for Life is a group which is doing a lot of work. There's the Canadian Asian Club, which is a highly art student population as well. There's also the student athletes, which are also quite heavily in arts. And so for me, targeting large groups of people as best I can who are in arts is a very good way to campaign for a question regarding the arts and social sciences.
Okay, so this was all for arts and social science through the referendum?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'm just wondering, I guess, is it okay if I ask this question? Okay. Sorry, we have to move on, so.
Going back to advocacy, both of you mentioned TransLink in your platforms. Over the past years, we've looked at other external relations platforms. We've had 3 years of successful external relations officers who have campaigned on lobbying TransLink. So you're not the first candidates to mention TransLink. What would set you apart? What would you do differently this year if you won to actually do something with TransLink?
Well, for me, when I look at the current work for the previous EROs, I think this year's ERO did this in a particularly strong way. I feel like Sade did a very good job in this asset, and what I want to do is continue doing the work. Lobbying TransLink is a process which will take a long period of time, certainly more than 1 year for whoever is elected. And for me, I think it's important to continue building a foundation and continuing forward on the right steps so that we can continue this process.
Yeah, so and I definitely agree with Darwin. It's really important. I know transit, improving transit is a huge issue for a lot of students. That was definitely something that I identified in my survey when I was talking to students as something that's actually really a barrier to involvement on campus. In terms of what I would do differently in terms of lobbying, would really to target the MLAs that are responsible for TransLink. So the Minister of Transportation right now, Todd Stone, someone who I'd really like to meet with, someone who I'd really like to kind of speak with regarding student issues, working with our local MLAs. So Jane Shin, who is the Burnaby Lougheed MLA for Burnaby for SFU, and Bruce Ralston, for Surrey, Jenny Kwan for Vancouver. Vancouver Woodwards, that is, and Sam Sullivan for the Harbour Centre campus. These are the people who I feel like should be really trying to represent students and who I'd really like to meet with and try and talk to about how we can improve transit to SFU on all 3 campuses.
This question from the audience for you, Kathleen. What positive changes have you personally brought to the SFU community through your involvement?
So sorry, my involvement in regards to just in general, I guess? Okay, well actually it's okay if I tell like a personal story, I guess. When I was actually talking with students and doing some outreach, I tried to talk to this one girl on campus who didn't want to talk to me at first, and I said, "Are you sure you don't want to learn more about the SFSS?" And she's like, "No, I don't really care." And I said, "Why don't you care?" And she's like, I don't really know how it affects me." And as an outcome of that conversation, I ended up convincing her ended up giving her more information of what the SFS does, and that that this is your health and dental plan. These are the people who are determining what money is spent on, what your money is spent on. I mean, all full-time students pay $35 every semester, which amounts to $2 million annually, and she didn't know that. So after speaking with her, she decided that she was going to vote in the election. I told her she didn't have to vote for me, that was not the purpose. But the purpose was the fact that to have that conversation, let her know what the SFS is doing. And when we do advocacy outreach days, that's what I've been doing. I mean, the advocacy committee has done a lot this semester in terms of making sure students know what the SFSS is doing, what campaigns and initiatives are out there that will help them meet their needs. So those are the types of things that I've been doing, just trying to really work on a one-to-one basis. I really haven't had the time, given that it's my first semester, to really organize a large-scale event. But things like that, where it's just having that one conversation with that one student, to me, is what matters the most, I think.
Thank you. In regards to conversations with students, when you did your survey, did you question students from the downtown campus, and what were their thoughts?
Yeah, I did, and you know what, I think the sad thing was that a lot of them didn't really know also what the SFSS was, and they didn't even really, a lot of them felt that there wasn't really a presence on campus. And I think that's definitely something that we really need to change to make sure we address the needs of all our students.
Yeah, and if I may, I'd like to agree with everything that Kathleen is saying. Advocacy is an incredibly important part of what the society does. If the society were no longer here, who would provide that advocacy work? And I think that's also a very good question to ask. Having said that, I think there are other facets of the portfolio which are important to speak of as well, aside from advocacy. And I wanted to ask Kathleen as well on her experience, your experience with the legalities regarding the SFSS.
Sorry, can you elaborate more on your question?
Your experience with legalities such as legal counsel or the lawyers or the process of working with that.
So you want to know what, in terms of advocacy, what the legal processes are?
Just your experience in general with the legalities surrounding the SFSS.
So are you referring to the Canadian Federation of Students legal case? Is that what you're referring to?
No, I mean just in general your experience.
I'm not quite sure how this is relevant to the External Relations Officer position. Do you mind elaborating more?
Yeah, so I think the reason that this is important for the External Relations portfolio is because that is a huge part of the portfolio. In situations such as the CFS case, as well as lockouts and such, the ERO is the one that mostly handles the work with, obviously, with the president regarding legal counsel and everything like that. And I feel like it's very important that students have experience in this regard, especially for, obviously, the VP External position, because that is the role.
Sorry, no, I'm looking at the portfolio right now, and I realize that it's quite flexible, but in terms of legal counsel, are you talking about working with law firms and things like that to address legal action that might come across to the SFSS in the future? Is that what you're looking for?
Well, no, one example in this case is, for example, we had the SAS constitutional bylaws and everything, and that had to go through the legal counsel with the SFSS as well. I've also had to speak to the legal counsel as well regarding things with, for example, Frosh. Frosh this year was contentious because of issues that happened at UBC, so we had to go through the proper legal channels to make sure everything was done correctly. And I feel like that kind of experience, obviously I don't want to get personal, I have other experience as well regarding legalities, but in the SFSS context, I have this kind of experience, and I think it's important to bring that to the table as well.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I mean, I personally don't foresee any legal conflict in the future of the SFSS. But I mean, we do have staff members that are in charge of this this type of situation. This is why we have permanent staff here, so the board of directors can facilitate and address these issues accordingly.
Yeah.
So I have to cut this topic short. Unfortunately, we're running low on time. But in terms of staff members, I'm glad you brought that up. We have another question from the audience about your thoughts on AP 20. So Darwin, can we start with you?
Right, so AP 20, it covers, I have the board manual here, and I won't whip out the thing and explain, but AP 20 basically covers staff running in elections and vice versa, board members gaining staff positions. For me, I see the issue regarding the time period between the two and the transition as an issue that has been brought up at the CPR committee and issues people have mentioned to me as well. Right now, in order for a staff member to run in elections or a board member to have a staff position, they must resign from what they currently hold 4 months in advance. Some people feel like this is too short, some people feel like this is too much. People have differing opinions. For me, I think it's good. I think a possible extension to maybe 6 months could also be seen as appropriate. Of course, CPR can decide how they want to do this at that committee, perhaps simply saying that staff members who want to run in elections can do so without having to resign so far in advance, but board members who want jobs with the society would still need that time period. Of course, there are issues with this, but those are my thoughts, and that's how I've seen the issue.
Yeah, so I'm actually a student at large, and I sit on the Constitution and Policy Review Committee, which is CPR. I know that in the past, that when the people that I've talked about this issue, there are a lot of diverging ideas about this topic. I really think that we should probably look into more the specifications of the SFSS staff members that are able to qualify for running for the board of directors. For instance, should a person who's working at the Ladle or the Highland Pub be discounted as a student who can't run for the board of directors? I mean, I think it really is going to depend on the situation, and this is definitely an issue that we will look to re-examining in the future. Or we should look to re-examine in the future.
Okay, thank you very much, candidates. We have time just for closing statements. So, Kathleen, would you like to begin?
So again, really like to thank you all for staying in tune with this debate. I just want to let everyone know that I am available for questions after this debate, and if you would like to connect with me, please feel free to do so via Facebook, email, Twitter. It is all posted on the Elections SFSS website. If you have any thoughts, concerns, or questions. I do have executive leadership experience. I have relevant academic knowledge about political processes and government in BC, which is why I think which is something that's really important to ensure that we have an effective lobbying campaign to make sure so we can fulfill our advocacy initiatives. I feel like I have a really strong understanding of the challenges of being an involved student, and if elected, this is something I really want to address and to try and make it so we can try and facilitate collective action, like I said earlier, amongst the student society, because I really feel that in the long term, SFU students should be a force to be reckoned with amongst external organizations, and I really believe that we have so much potential to fulfill that goal in the long term.
Yeah, I have a lot of experience at this university. I've been here for 3 years now. I'm in my 3rd year. I've worked very hard as a current student representative. I've done a lot of work in a very diverse way. My experience is long-standing, and that experience is diverse, and I feel like I've gained a versatile skill set because of all the work I've done over the years. For me, passion and experience are two very different things, but I think both are required to make a strong candidate. And I feel like executive directors especially should have long-standing experience within the framework of the society and outside of it. And that's honestly why I feel like I am a very strong candidate for this position. I've been doing this for a long time, and I feel very ready, and no disrespect to my opponent. But I do feel like a very, very strong candidate, and I hope to have your votes. Thank you very much, and I hope.
Thank you, candidates. Next, we move on to VP Student Services.
Guys ready?
Yeah. Yes.
All right, let's start with opening statements. Rahul?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Rahul Rajanala, and I'm running for the position of Vice President of Student Services. For over 2 years, I have been involved significantly in student affairs for student department unions called the International Students Group, and as a foreign representative for the SFSS committees such as Advocacy, Granting, and Commercial Services Committee, as well as I've participated in several activities and events while being in campus for the past 2-3 years. My slate and I share a common a plan to make the SFSS a place where all students are represented and valued and free to voice their opinions. Why should people vote for me? I believe that everyone has a choice to vote who they wish to better represent the society, and the student services is a vital part to all undergraduate students as well as other students participating within the campus. Not as Burnaby campus, but that includes Surrey campus and as well as Vancouver campus. And I wish to better facilitate and serve students by providing services that are exceptional and equal to all. Thank you very much.
Hello and welcome everyone. We all pay hundreds of dollars worth of fees to the student society,
And as members, we get student representation, social events, and a variety of services that society has to offer, such as the UPass and the health and dental coverage. My involvement with various clubs, SAS, and the SFSS has prepared me well to successfully oversee these services and to benefit our membership in the best possible way. My name is Ziad. I'm running to become your next VP Student Services. Thank you.
Start with a general question for both of you. Are there any services that the Student Society should provide that it currently doesn't?
I believe currently we do cover a wide range of services that our students can benefit from, but the problem that I see is that most of these services are not provided in the Surrey and Vancouver campuses, and that is something that I will try to work on achieving.
That's a very great point to be indicated right now. I feel like the student services should be provided to the Surrey campus and the Vancouver campuses. Most of the facilities right now provided to students are beneficial and everything, but the main issue is that people are not aware of that. We have emails being sent to students every week, at least at the end of the week, and people are still asking questions. I've met few students that I've asked when I'm trying to campaign myself, asked what do you know about student services? They're really unfamiliar with it, especially the food bank program, ombudsperson, and small these services provided to students and so on.
We have an audience question for you, Rahul. Question: I'm an international student who has been following ISG, International Students Group, very closely throughout the past few years. You listed that you are the president of ISG. However, I have not seen any outreach, activity, or effort to serve the international student community whatsoever aside from Week of Welcome and Clubs Days. In your platform, you said that you plan to enrich student experiences and create opportunities for clubs and DSUs. There are over 50 DSUs/constituency groups and about 200 clubs. Can you please explain how you plan to better 200 to 300 groups and create opportunities for them when the SFU community hasn't seen any activity from ISG, which is just one DSU?
Thank you very much. That's a really great question. And true, I've been running president for the ISG for at least 2 semesters so far. When I first joined ISG, the International Students Group, it was a really relatively small group. It started in 2006 Actually, it started in 2002 originally with the emphasis that there's better representation of students in campus because they feel like their opinions and voices are not reached for students. With the current team that I'm working with right now, it's kind of limited. The problem is, and as well as the issue that I've been facing so far, is because the viability of reaching the word for international students. When we talk about international students, they range a lot from people from China, India, so on. But we have so many other varieties of clubs and DSU that are able to provide these certain events that hold events, pub nights, wing nights, and as well as other events that are even held externally to the campus. ISG has not been able to provide to sign these options is because we have currently a lack of small staff in our group right now, and I've been trying to outreach people as soon as possible. Particular issue as well like there's a difference between the academic life and as well as the extracurricular activities. So when I'm trying to reach these at least 200 clubs and at least over 100 DSUs, I'm trying to see that if as a student services, I'm able to reach these people, especially the international community, because they feel like they're not in reach to their potential as much as possible. Clubs are able to do that, but given the limited power that DSUs have, unlike the clubs where they're more free to do what events they're held and so on, I'm trying to see if, I'm trying to work on campaigns and programs that can promote international students and as well as their events. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul. I just wanted to add a little bit to that because I had a question about it myself. You have mentioned on your platform that you will increase DSU and clubs opportunities for all students. And I wonder how you will be able to do that if you have failed to engage your own club.
Great question. Thank you very much. I do emphasize that I have not been that very successful when trying to reach people and so on. I've been trying myself because I'm really committed to reach people as much as possible, especially the international community. There are barriers coming to because of like having 3 campuses throughout the campus, which is difficult to reach people, as well as as well as the language barriers because people are more focused into their circle groups. They're their trust, the credibility, and so on is not as strong as possible. My campaign and as well as my programs that I want to promote when I'm as a student services is to reach people individually and hopefully have some volunteers who have the same ideals and logic and the ideology to reach international students. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's great, but that was not really the answer to the question. And I'm also an international student myself, and I was never reached to, nor have I heard about any activities of the ISG over the last couple semesters. I also once decided to go check the ISG website, and the last event shown on the NUR website goes back to 2011, which was 3 years ago.
Thank you very much for your question, but I think the bigger issue is that, like I said, is my small team that I have right now, as well as reaching the people. We have at least 30,000 students within the campus. Our team tried to focus on trying to reach people on the Burnaby and later on expand, but given that limited power we have as well as the staff, this has proven difficulty. So what the reason why I tried to join and as well as engage people in student services, so that services given to the DSUs as well as including international students have the ability to reach students in a larger scales. For example, we try to reach people, for example, working with the general office and so on, like putting our events on posters as well as the SFP calendar. But I guess given the limited awareness of how this can reach to the international community as well as the local students has proven to be difficult. And I plan to do something about that, not at the moment that I have seen, but I'm going to work on those programs specifically when I'm in the office. Thank you.
So there a question for you, Ziad, from the audience. In your platform, you indicated that you plan to serve clubs and DSUs through online outreach, social media, training workshops, and working with the General Office and Student Union Resource Office staff to increase the number of active groups. According to the Student Society Constitution, liaising and organizing clubs, DSUs, and faculty student unions falls under the VP Student Life's portfolio. The VP Student Services role is focused on services like the health plan, nightline, food and beverage, and other administrative tasks. How would you justify needing 2 executives doing the same thing? Would you be redundant?
Well, first of all, this year we're going to have a new experience with the MSO position being split into 2 new positions. That's one. And 2, I do not have the new constitution with me, but I am pretty sure that the new bylaws mention the clubs and ESUs under both portfolios of member student services and student life.
That's a great answer, actually. Thank you for Mo Kopati, who is actually the MSO currently right now. It is true that there's a challenges given that because the single position has been separated to 2 positions right now. Student services is more specifically to the services. So I agree with what you have to say. Thank you.
Since the VP student service role is very administrative, it deals with clubs and departmental student unions, for example, granting criteria or core funding allocations, what issues do you identify? What would you like to change? Why don't we start with you?
Sure. I think there are quite a bit attributes when it comes to student services. For example, for campus life, if I were elected as a VP of student services, I'll be working with at least some co-curricular programs on campus, advising campus program, student organizations, and student governance. When it comes to diversity and inclusion, I'm trying to see if I can provide support and programming to create an environment of respect and education, as well as be a stress-free environment for all kinds of diversities, and as well as people with different gender representation and so on, and as well as assist international students, obviously. Thank you.
There is few issues that they would like to address, most of which are on my platform, including building all the nuts and bolts program, providing web hosting for the student groups to advertise for their activities and for their projects. But there is also something else that nobody mentioned, which is about the policies. I think that there is some policies about the clubs and the SUs that need to be looked at closely over the next year. For example, the communication policies as to how clubs, DSUs can or cannot advertise and so on.
Ziad, in your, oh, did you have something to say?
Yes.
Yeah?
Thank you very much for the great answer. There is one thing I'm concerned about for the nuts and bolts program. I'm sure it is under the organizer's office who's going to be working on that. How do you plan to improve that and expand that idea?
My job as a student representative is to bring ideas to the office and is not to micromanage or to carry on the day-to-day operations. So I'm just assuming my duties as a student representative and bringing the ideas and reporting back from DSU executives and clubs executives.
Great answer. I really appreciate that you're actually going through those advisories and aspects in student services. And I also want to add on that, according to what Ziad just said, I totally agree that this has to be gone through how I have to work between the general office as well as the clubs at DSU. My job, our job, if we're elected, is as well to foster clubs and DSUs, because this is something that relates to student services. Student services, the name itself is already implying on providing services to students. Thank you.
Zena, a question for you here. You stated that you wanted to work to help clubs and DSUs bypass the financial boundaries that they face. What kind of financial boundaries do you see existing for clubs and DSUs?
While sitting on the granting committee, I see a lot of the financial problems that clubs and DSUs go through when they come to the committee with their grants proposals. With that, part of what I offered on my platform is developing the Nuts and Bolts program. Part of what I have in mind is to include a sponsorship acquiring training specific for the clubs and DSUs exec in order for them to acquire some sponsorship from outside SFSS.
Thank you very much, Ziad. But I think there should, the Nuts and Bolts program focus more on the clubs at DSUs. But I think there should be more emphasis given to programs that comes under student services, such as the health and dental plan, the UPass program, and as well as the food bank program and the ombudsperson.
Yeah, my platform does not only mention the nuts and bolts, that's actually a small portion of my platform. I focus a lot on the health and dental plan, given that I have been sitting on the committee over the last year and I have worked with the current president and MSO on formulating the new referendum questions.
So in your platform, Rahul, you talk about wanting to do something with the ombudsperson. What does that mean?
That's a great question. I think partially in the beginning I've talked to people about the awareness thing, and that has been pertaining to international students. The same goes to the wide variety of students currently enrolled in SFU. The ombudsperson was established in 2008, joined with Simon Fraser's Student Society and Graduate Student Society in support to develop a new jointly funded office where students are able to enjoy services on advices and as well as being treated fairly. These services include providing information, advices, investigating complaints, respects confidentiality on an objective manner, and maintain a standard of neutrality. So basically, this service is for people to enjoy services that was provided in Burnaby campus. I'm just going to add a small short story. When I'm campaigning as well, I told people about the ombudsperson. They were really unfamiliar of this service itself. And when I told them about it, and they were really surprised and thought that I had few complaints, for example, with my professors, with my grades, or for example, treated unfairly. Then they said that why weren't we aware of this? Because there's the limited services right now only being the office in Burnaby campus, and I believe that this services should also go to Surrey campus as well as Vancouver campus. As mentioned as Ziad, I totally agree that these services should be expanded to a certain extent so that students can enjoy these services equally. Thank you.
Do you have any comments on the ombudsperson? No? Do you guys have questions for each other?
Sure.
So I like how you mentioned that in your platform that you want to start the process of expansion of SFSS services to Vancouver and Surrey. How do you plan to do that?
We do currently have some space in the Vancouver and Surrey campuses that are not fully used, in my own opinion. And having spoken with the current MSO about the feasibility of some of these projects, I think it's totally doable, but this will be up to the next board of directors and the team to decide how exactly we're going to proceed about it.
Great answer. Thank you very much. But I think in my platform, I've also mentioned that because people need awareness is the biggest point of factor that affects for students, because we have 3 satellite campuses around Vancouver, and people when they're not aware of their services, then I feel like the partial budget that we get from the student fees is not fully utilized and effectively. So therefore, by having this awareness reach to all students, including international students, this has to, I'm running for student services so that it can be explained. Emails will not be sufficient enough, but more like having a small team, for example myself, and I would appreciate when I'm employing some of the volunteers to help me outreach these students on how student services is able to provide services and that the budget is effectively being used for students. Thank you.
Excuse me, I'm just wondering, how is that related to the question that you asked me?
Oh, I just simply asked you, how do you expand, you said that you're going to start the process of expansion of SFSS. So I just asked you simply, it doesn't matter what kind of methods you're going to do or what kind of programs you have, how do you try to expand those student services for other campuses? So all I said was that I want people to be aware, and one of the programs that I want to run myself is employing at least few volunteers and then bringing it to other campuses so that they're aware of these services, even though when they're like represented as a minority, but can be used when we later expand them. So that's just my rebuttal on that.
Thank you very much. I totally agree with that, and I think consultation with students is key to carrying on our operations. Thank you.
Do you have a question for Rahul?
Yes. Well, running for VP services, I am sure you went over the contract with the healthcare provider. Is there anything you would change about it?
Well, I have gone with the contracts over, and as well as the referendum that's been passed, the question 1 and question number 2. But as a VP of Student Services, I am to serve the students and agree with what students have. I even personally believe that the first question, according to referendum, having the feasibility and the flexibility to have choices between two services is something that can be established and people would enjoy. Because when, for example, the health and dental plan that students are enjoying right now are either overusing the services they have, in which they want to spend more, but given the restrictedness and the limited of those services, this option is really viable, and I would totally go with what students are going to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, that does not really answer the question. I specifically asked about the contract. And one of the things I would change about the contract that we currently have is that it's a 5 years contract. And in order to offer more flexible options to students, I will aim to reduce the length of the contract to 2-3 years maximum.
That's a great idea, but and according to my rebuttal for this case is that because given the inflation as well as for this benefit services and the coverage, this would prove a bit difficulty. So in my suggestion, I would be working especially, for example, the health and extended health and dental committee more excessively how we can have a more viable discussion and contract with the, for example, the journals consultation that we're having the contract with on how we can come to these feasibility. Right now, the referendum, that question on the flexibility between the two choices seems more relevant and as well as effective to what students need right now because of the rise in inflation and as well as the coverage that provides for students. Thank you.
A question for both of you from the audience. How does the UPass program work? Why don't we start with you, Ziad?
The UPass program basically is a plan that we, as university and public post-secondary institution students, we benefit from. It's a subsidized service by TransLink. We went for referendum last year. We agreed for an increase over the next 3 years. How it's gonna happen after that, that's gonna be the main discussion over the next couple years, in which, if elected, I will make sure I represent the students' needs and represent them to the authorities.
Thank you very much for your response. Well, I'd just like to add in what you just missed out, because I have mentioned in my platform that I'll be advocating for the UPass itself. I'll be working with student unions, as SFU and TransLink on a better UPass program. But the UPass program, inevitably would go through the UPass advisory committee first, because they're the specific committee that handles the UPass program. And so far, because of the given rises in the TransLink and as well the introduction of the new Compass card, we have seen rises in the past. And according to the contract that you just mentioned, we have seen at least originally that was 2 years ago that was $140. Right now it's $147, and it is expected to go to 152 in the next fiscal year. So one thing we have to as a VP of Student Services, we have to take into consideration is how we can effectively have this advocacy between the TransLink as well as the SFSS and the SFU campuses, because we have 3 satellite campuses altogether. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing the great information. But I think the question was quite vague, and I believe that my answer did respond to it. That being said, I think the UPass issue is too complicated to explain in 1 or 2 minutes, and that is why I did not want to go into the details.
Thank you very much for your question again. True. Sorry for your answers. Sorry for that small mistake. So yeah, thank you very much for your response. Well, I just added in what you just said, additional information on that. For SFSS, or when it comes to UPass for SFU students, it just literally just goes to the SFU UPass advisory committee. And because in 2008, this is how the UPass was more effectively established and so on. And last year, when the elections were running, the referendum passed on was on the UPass program itself, and similar to what we are handling right now on the health and dental program. Thanks.
Let's move on to closing statements. Let's start with Ziad.
Over the last 2 years, I have been as involved as a student can be with the SFU community. I did not come here to give vague promises, I came here with specific and achievable goals. And in addition, I would like to mention that I officially endorsed the yes side to the SAS referendum. If you are a nurse major, minor, or taking a nurse class, please vote yes for SAS referendum and make SAS the first faculty student union on campus. Just one other thing, I would really like to thank each and every one of you for the incredible amounts of support that I have been receiving over the last 2 weeks of campaigning. It is really heartwarming, and I could not be happier. No matter what the results will be, I will always be grateful. My name is Ziad. I'm running to become your next VP Student Services. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ziad. Much obliged. On my closing, thank you very much again for everyone who is joining us here, as well as those on the live feed. I'm glad that I was given this opportunity to come here and run for the position itself, and as well as for the supporting team, and as well and those people who are supporting our causes. I would like everyone to encourage to vote next week, because elections determines who better represents the SFSS and the future potential projects that we all will be working with. But it all comes to a person who well represents us. By voting in the elections last week, it is at least the first step of our cause that students are able to engage and participate within the elections itself and in our community. And I especially look forward for working and serving students so as to better facilitate and coordinate services for all. Thank you, IC and everyone, and for those enjoying us, please vote for the SAS referendum, as well as the health and dental plan for the flexibility of the choice. Thank you very much.
Can we get the candidates for Vice President University Relations, please?
Alright, so now we're moving on to the VP University Relations. Starting off, Mo Kahi could not be here. He sent in a statement, which I will read out. Dear students, please accept my apology for not being able to make it to today's debates. I'm working with the Surrey School District on a youth program which introduces 5th graders to science and engineering at the Surrey campus. I understand that debates are extremely important for people to ask questions from the candidates, but I promise you to be available for your concerns via email and phone. Lastly, I want to wish you luck to all candidates participating at today's elections. Okay, so moving on, start with opening statements. Clay, let's start with you.
Hello, everybody. Well, it's been an exciting past couple weeks, but I'd like to take this opportunity and slow things down a little bit and recognize the fact that we today are gathering on unceded Coast Salish territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, Stolo, and Sabletooth people. I think this is something that's been overlooked by the board, by the student society, particularly by candidates. We don't acknowledge the fact that whose lands we are and how we're allowed to gather and participate and play here. So with keeping that in mind, I'd like to remind people of the importance of Aboriginal policy here at the university and remind you, kind of stumbled through that one, guys, but yeah, we're here on Coast Salish territory. Thank you so much for allowing us to gather and play here.
Okay, Sarah?
Hi guys, thank you for coming. My name is Sarah Flotter. I'm a 4th year Arts and Social Sciences undergraduate student, and I'm running to become the VP University Relations. I have 4 major goals that I want to achieve if elected. First, I want to improve student involvement, support the Build SFU department, increase enrollment openings, and extend library hours. Thank you.
Okay, so Mo isn't here, so some of these questions might not pertain entirely, but the two of you, Clay and Sarah, have very different approaches in terms of your platform and your vision for university relations. Why is your approach the best? Sarah, can we start with you?
So my approaches are pretty academic if you look at them. I feel that the VP University Relations portfolio is one that is not linked so much to events. However, I'm very in support of my fellow board members, if elected, in supporting them with events, anything like that. Yeah.
I'd like to point to the first obligation or duty of the University Relations, Vice President of University Relations, and that is to act as a liaison to the university. And I believe that's why my platform holds greater weight, is because I want to hold the university accountable for its policies, for the things that it says that it will do, to act as a liaison on behalf of students to make sure that the university does support us and stands behind the things that it publishes.
Okay, thank you to both of you. Clay, what policies in particular would you like to hold the university accountable for, and why?
Well, thank you so much for the question. You know, for me, obviously, I'm an Anishinaabe man, full status, although it may not look like it. So, although some people may want to say, oh, you're biased towards this issue or you're biased towards that issue, I think the Aboriginal issues aren't just Aboriginal issues, they're all Canadian issues, because whenever we have one group of people that are left behind, it affects our strength as an entire society. So, could you just remind me the question to make sure I'm staying on target here?
Yeah, just because you mentioned you want to hold
the policy. So the most important policy to me is the Aboriginal Strategic Plan and its pillars of support and engagement for the Aboriginal community, and to progress or to help move forward, to help this community move forward. So thank you so much.
Can I ask a question? Or? Yeah. Okay. So you're currently a member at large on the SFSS Board of Directors, which means that you represent the whole student population at SFU. That being said, over the past year, the major project that you led was the Truth and Reconciliation, which is a great cause that I do support. However, even though I think that was a great initiative, what have you done for the rest of the students at SFU over your term as a member at large?
Thank you so much for that question, and I think it just highlights the importance of the Truth and Reconciliation. The fact that you believe that reconciliation is just an Aboriginal issue highlights the fact that the residential schools is something that the entire Canadian government and the entire Canadian society participated in. So now to try to isolate and alienate an Aboriginal community, or to isolate me for promoting this cause, I think is not appropriate. It was an event for the entire student body population. That's how we achieved academic amnesty for everybody, regardless of the course that they were in. So I'd like to remind you of that. It was for everybody, not just for Aboriginal students. I wish you had participated.
Okay. Great response. I did not try to minimize your effort in that. What I was trying to say is, what other events or what else did you do that would represent other students?
Well, I mean, I've participated with the advocacy committee. I've sat on ComSerCom. I've done my duties as a representative of the society by attending meetings and all kinds of things. I mean, I don't think we need to sit here and list off what it is I've done and what it is I haven't done. I've been very involved, and everybody here knows that. So thank you so much for asking that question as well.
Clay, back to you. Looking at your platform from 2013, sorry.
Yep.
And you had 4 very simple goals in your platform. Which of those goals did you actually achieve in your year?
I don't think I accomplished any of them, did I? No, I don't think I did. What were they? Can you remind them? Because it's been a while.
So lobby for a 5-year freeze on UPass fees. Campaign for changing the meal plan to allow flex dollars to be spent.
Yeah.
Reliable Wi-Fi throughout the entire campus. And advocate for the creation of constituency group seats within the board of directors.
Yeah, so thanks so much for pointing towards some of the stuff that I talked about last year. But again, I'd just like to remind people that it was my first year getting involved with the SFSS, and I had a lot of big dreams. And last year people said they weren't realistic, and maybe I've refined them a little bit. But we talked about improving Wi-Fi for students at the board meeting. You know, I looked into constituency group representation on the board, and we already have seats on forum. You know, so there are different ways to approach each topic or each promise that I made. But I'd just like to remind you, you know, when I came into office, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was coming to the forefront, and I did feel that it was a more important initiative than simply providing Wi-Fi for students. Not that I don't, you know, have problems connecting with Wi-Fi here at school and wish that they weren't better, but I think that there are more important issues that we can address as a society.
Now, Sarah, you are the candidate this year for this position that has never been on the board, but you were on Senate, and you mentioned that it relates to the university relations position. It will help you with that. So can you speak to how your experience will help you with this position?
Yes. So I have been elected to Senate the 3rd time now, so that shows that students are very confident in my portfolio and that I have delivered and will deliver. Regarding the position, it's very important to know how the Senate works, the Senate committees, because this is a step prior of doing something realistically, like bringing a goal forward.
I'd like to make a comment on that, and you know, anybody that was aware or participated in the Truth and Reconciliation campaign will understand that I'm well versed with Senate now, and I understand how these campaigns come forward because I actually had to bring this campaign to Senate. So I appreciate that your experience on Senate is ample. But I'd also like to point out a flaw that we have in our elections regarding Senate and Board of Governors. You know, I put my name into the elections, but unlike the Student Society elections, there's no campaign contributions that's provided by the university. So I couldn't afford to put up a single poster. So the fact that you sit on Senate, maybe it's great that you've represented students, but is it just because you have privilege and you could afford to put posters up and campaign for yourself? Or what?
I'm sure you could have also advertised in different ways, such as Facebook, Twitter. Social media is so big right now. There would have been other ways too.
Okay, I'm not sure how that point relates to this position, but Sarah, you said, I mean about Senate campaigning, to clarify. Sarah, you said you support events and stuff, as from the audience. Can you expand on events and stuff?
Okay, yeah. Sorry, 1 second, please.
Of course.
if you'd like a second, I'll take your comment actually there, Andrew, about how that relates to this position, because it is the university relation position. We are liaisons to the university, so that's a policy that the university needs to change in supporting its students and leveling the playing field so all students can adequately and equally participate in the elections to represent us on not just on the Senate, which Sarah has so graciously pointed out. Thank you graciously pointed out that it is the academic governing body of the school. So I think it's very important that that is talked about here as a student society issue, because I believe it's a policy the university should change.
Okay. So what I was referring to is I would support my fellow members with events, projects, and campaigns. So anything that is not so academic.
Okay. Another question from the audience. Clay, you have a large focus on the Canadian society. Does that mean that you are overlooking the SFSS membership I'm guessing that's as a diverse membership with a large focus on multiculturalism?
No, I don't think so, because for those people that are involved, will understand or are aware of international policies, will know that Canada is the only country left in the world that has multicultural practices in law, in policy. So by focusing on our society as a whole, I think that's the same. It represents us. We are representative of the Canadian society. That's why we have so many international students, why we have a diversity of Aboriginal students, of American students, of Canadian students. It's who we are. And so I don't think by focusing on society as a whole, I'm ignoring the diversity of SFU.
Thank you, Sarah. Do you have anything to add? Another question from the audience for Clay. In your platform last year, you included projects that did not include the TRC.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, your projects weren't achieved and the reasons are understood, but how can we guarantee that your platform we may vote for this year won't change?
I think part of that is with my experience, with the experience that I gained over the last year. I have a few more realistic goals, such as setting a fixed board meeting time, so that way students know when we meet, they know what we're talking about, they know how they can come and get involved with us. That's simple and achievable, and that's something that I believe can be done at the first board meeting. In that respect, I can guarantee that some of those things won't change. But I'd like to remind people, we live in a dynamic society right now, so to necessarily hold somebody accountable, or not accountable, but to one specific plan of action doesn't incorporate or account for the fact that life changes.
In regards to that fixed date and time for all board meetings, is another question that actually relates to that. It would require a change in SFSS policy, which would take no less than a month to enact and does not actually require the university relations position.
Yeah.
So how does that relate to the position? Why is this in your platform?
Well, it relates to my position because I don't think we're handcuffed to exactly what's explained to us in the profile or the profile of the
Constitution,
position,
the policy,
the position, the specific position, right? But it's more related to my experience on the board, and I think anybody, whether you're on ACE or whether you're on Move the Mountain or an independent candidate, will understand the frustration of trying to book the board meeting. Is it Monday morning at 8:30? Is it Wednesday at 12:30? When is it? Let's get together and set a fixed time. The women's basketball team, the men's wrestling team, all of our sports teams here at school are able to meet at a set time. The wrestling team has met at the same time for the last 40 years. So tell me why it is that the student society can't manage to do the same thing. I don't think it's fair that we privilege 16 individuals and create such a flexible atmosphere where they can attend willy-nilly and set the dates as they please. We need a fixed board meeting time so all of our membership knows when they can come down and hear what's happening within the student society.
Sarah, in your platform you state that you want to increase library hours. What hours are you proposing?
I'm saying increasing, I'm not saying 24/7. I know I mentioned that the library here in Burnaby is open 24/7 during finals. What I want to do though is increase these hours because we have students that are heavily involved in the community or work and are not able to come, I don't know, maybe before 10 p.m. It's just a space really important for a student's career and success and fulfilling their studies.
Candidates, do you have any questions for each other?
Would you like to go first?
You can go first.
Sure, I've got one. So my first question, it's come up for a couple other candidates here, and I'm sure we'll receive a very adequate answer. But I just have to ask you, on your platform, you indicate that you're in favor of corporate sponsorship. So what type of corporations do you envision being involved as a sponsorship, as a sponsor partner for the sub-building?
Okay, so I feel it to be important to fit those corporations with the students' values, I guess. What I was thinking, maybe Coke, something students drink a lot of Coke, or something that relates to students that they use. Coke, Nike, I don't know, those kind of corporations I'm thinking of that would benefit from sponsorships too.
How would you plan about contacting those corporations? I mean, could you please elaborate on that a little bit?
I don't think that's that hard. It's just writing an email, contacting the manager, and asking about a meeting.
So, thank you so much. I'm glad it's so simple to secure that type of sponsorship.
Sarah, do you have any questions for Clay?
Yes.
I actually had a second question. Or do you want it back and forth?
I'd like to give Sarah a question first.
Sure.
Okay, so I noticed you not mentioning anything about the Build SFU project. It's been a very important project for the SFSS and for the students. So what were your investments with the Build SFU aside from voting on motions on the board?
Thank you for bringing that up. I'm really glad we're talking about this because it was one of the biggest frustrations I had this year on the board, was trying to get involved with Build SFU, and I think this reflects what I've heard it called as the involvement circle. You have to know people in order to get involved. You have to have friends so you can get voted on to committees. That's not what this is about. As a board member, I couldn't get on to Build SFU committees. It wasn't until the very last committee that was created for Build SFU that I was finally supported by board members and allowed access into this. So I did try to get involved with this. I put my name forward for every single Build SFU committee that was out there. I've come by and I go and I speak with the individual staff members in the think tank. So I've been involved with it. Just because I don't have official representation on a committee isn't my fault. It's because there's these obstacles, these barriers that exist that prohibit students from being able to get involved, and I'd like to address those.
This is really hard for me to understand because I've been contacted by the Build SFU team to attend meetings, and it didn't seem to be that hard to get involved in it. I feel like if you really want to, there's always a way to get that done.
I think you're attempting to ignore the statement that I just made. I have been involved. I go in and meet with the staff on an individual basis. I do attend meetings. I attend them as a board member. But I think what you're trying to address is the specific committee aspect. Why haven't I been on the student advisory committee? It's because I didn't get voted in by the board. I wasn't allowed there. So it's not my fault that I don't sit on these committees. That's the way the votes are cast.
Clay, you mentioned having another question for Sarah.
Yeah. You talk about, your platform is kind of academically motivated, which, as a student, I think it resonates with all of us. You say, though, that you envision working with the registrar to give priority to students who are in the greatest need for classes. So can you please define need for classes? Because I'd like to understand this.
Okay, so what I will be doing is I want to work with the university admin to make sure that students don't have to hold off on their graduation. So there's a lot of fourth-year students that still need to get rid of their WQB courses and cannot get in because some other people that are, for example, in the Department of Science have priority to enroll in these classes. So I want to work with the university administration to make sure that those students that are in greater need to take these courses are able to do so without extending their studies.
I really appreciate this, and I think everybody else can as well. As students, I think we all feel the need and the pressure to graduate within a certain amount of time. But as a former peer academic advisor, I think you're missing some really important mechanisms that are already in place. One, the fact that we already have priority enrollment. You know, it correlates to how many credits you have. I have 110 credits. I got to register for classes on March 13th. It is based on my need to graduate. WQBs, there are hundreds of WQBs that exist that you can access. So maybe students want to get into one specific course, but you know, we all have to be flexible, and we have to understand that we're not going to get everything that we want as much as we would like to. So keep that in mind, you know, and realize that these priority mechanisms, these things are already in place, and it's a redundant platform.
So I don't agree with that. I'm sure you've heard of a lot of students complaining about opening enrollments. There's just not a lot of classes for specific courses, and I feel there should be a greater variety because we are all paying for attending SFU, so we should be getting the service.
We do have to move on, unfortunately. There is a follow-up question from the audience. Clay.
Yeah.
There must be a reason why your peers did not vote you on the Build SFU Advisory Committee. Can you please explain why?
You know, I'm not sure. To tell you the truth, I don't know. Why wasn't I voted onto the Build SFU Committee? You know, my father owns a small construction company, so I was brought up with this kind of knowledge. I have the experience regarding concrete. That's what my dad's company does. So maybe it was, you know, that there was a perceived conflict of interest. There may be a potential bid on it from that, but there's no interest from my father's company to do. So I can't explain why I'm not on there. I know what I'm talking about in regards to construction. I've looked at blueprints. I've sat down with architects and engineers on an independent level and gone over these types of things, these schematics. So I wish I had been included. I don't know. Maybe my fellow board members can tell me why.
Okay, thank you, Clay. And again, for you, Clay, there's another follow-up question. I mean, your platform states that you want to hold the university accountable for its policies. You want to make sure it follows the policies, correct?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Earlier when I asked you why the fixed date and time for all board meetings relates to your position, you said that we shouldn't follow the policy to a T. You said that there is room for flexibility, and the position is outlined in the policies. And it seems like you weren't, you're suggesting that there's room for interpretation there and shouldn't be followed. Is that correct?
I guess I'm not really understanding your question. You know, our policy manual is a living, breathing document, so it's allowed to be changed as long as it follows due process. So maybe explain it to me a little bit more, what you're asking.
Because when I asked you how your platform relates to your actual position, I was just trying to clarify what your response was and how it relates to kind of the beliefs and the things that your platform tries to represent.
Well, I think my platform represents getting students involved and supporting students, and you know, not every board initiative or not every initiative that comes from a board member is explicitly written in the duties and obligations section. So I guess I'm at a loss here. I'm sorry. I still don't understand.
Okay. We'll move on to closing statements before the presidential debate begins. So Sarah, would you like to begin?
Can I actually ask one more question?
If it's a quick one, you have
Yes,
about a minute.
It will be very quick. I'll read quick. Okay. You created an event where students were able to attend a speech held by Professor Kim Rosmo. This event was supposed to take place in Burnaby. However, the location was changed to downtown on short notice. Because this was not communicated to students, very few students actually showed up. How can we trust that you will not waste students' money next year?
Thank you again. This is a fantastic question, guys, and I'm glad I'm being held accountable for the event that I held in partnership with the First Nations Student Association. I did not create this event. There's a criminology speaker series, and it's one of the most successful speaker series that has ever come to SFU. They've brought in Truth and Reconciliation commissioners. They brought in a commissioner from the Royal Aboriginal Commission. They've been fantastic speakers. So it wasn't my initiative. I was supporting a group on campus. And why did we move it? Because Dr. Kim Rosmo published works and was on the homicide squad when Robert Pickton was at large. and women went missing from the downtown east side. And the First Nations Student Association felt it would be more appropriate to hold the speaking event in the community where those women went missing from. And if you have a problem with that, I think we've got, wow, big problems.
I feel like you didn't really answer my question.
I moved, the event was moved because the First Nations Student Association.
No, I didn't ask
Oh,
why.
how do you know that we won't waste, how do I know that I won't waste funds? I don't think that was a waste of funds. That was the answer there, is that if you think moving that event to the downtown campus was a waste of student funds, there were 300 people in attendance. Some were graduate students. There were a lot of undergraduate students. I saw my fellow classmates there. I was there. So were you there? Did you do the head count? How do you know how many students were there?
Okay. I feel like you could have communicated it better, making sure that people were actually able to come.
That event was
my
actually held in
point.
the first week of October, which came right on the heels of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So I'm sorry I didn't provide more heads up around a partnership that we had formed with one of our departments here on campus, but I was working on a lot of really important things. So I hope you take that into consideration. I'm sorry I moved it from one campus to the other. I didn't realize I was harming so many students by doing that.
Thank you for the discussion, both of you. Clay, can we start with your closing statement?
Sure. You know, I think I've pretty much said everything I came here to say today. I spoke from my heart, I spoke with emotion, you know, and I'm passionate about this student society, and I think it resonates with students. I want to see something positive here. I want to see a space created where everybody can come down and feel safe to participate in dialogue, feel encouraged and feel supported by their fellow members. I want to hold the university accountable for the policies it publishes and make sure that student issues are represented, not just within clubs and DSUs, within departments, or within the student society, but within the Canadian society at large. And I think we have the power to form collective movement, to form collective action, and actually shape society in the way that we want to see it, instead of accepting the things that are told to us. Thank you so much. Don't forget to move the mountain, guys.
The VP University Relations job is to act as a liaison of the university and the SFSS. Being on the SFU Senate, excuse me, for 2 terms now and starting my 3rd term in May, I know I'm the perfect candidate for this position, since this role allowed me to understand how the university works, which is crucial skill to have for the VP University Relations. Also, I realized the needs and wishes of a wide range of students, as I'm a well-rounded person that I became through my many different roles at SFU, including being the German club's president, a German TA, and an SFU cheerleader. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, candidates. And now we move on to the presidential debate.
Hold up.
Thanks. No, just with the wire.
Hello, Alexander. I'm well, thanks.
Good luck.
You as well.
Good luck, sir.
Is there any space to sit and learn?
Excited?
Long campaign period.
All right. presidential candidates. Start with opening statements. Charday.
No time limit, right? Okay, cool. All right, well, thank you everybody for being here. Just to start off, thank you, Clay, for the introduction and the acknowledgement of being on unceded Coast Salish territories. Thank you to the Coast Salish people for allowing us to be here. My name is Charday Buchert, and I'm running for SFSS president because I really believe in the power of the student movement. I really believe in the things that we can do together. I feel that we have so much power. Our student society has negotiated tuition freezes. We are the reason that we have the UPass. In 1995, we played a lead role in organizing the largest student strike in Canada's history. The student movement has been behind massive social change. It was a huge force behind the feminist movement, the civil rights movement. Globally, we see students overthrowing corrupt governments. We have the power to do great things here at SFU. I look around in the world and I see so many injustices. I see so many things that are wrong, and often I feel powerless and don't know what to do to address them. So I'm here today. I'm not perfect. I don't have all the answers, but I feel that through the Student Society, I have the ability to make some really great changes. I've got a team together of people that believe that we can do great things. That's what we're here to do. We can try to fix the problems that we see in the world. We can do things differently, or we can try to do the same thing over again. And I think that I'm here representing fundamental change, something different, something that's going to raise questions about privilege and oppression and the way that things are in the world. So I think that a vote for myself and for Move the Mountain is signifying that you really want meaningful change. You want a student society that represents you. You want something more. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, so I'm nobody. I don't come from like a board of directors. I don't come from the Senate. I am actually just a regular student, okay? As depressing as it is, I wasn't that involved in the community. I haven't heard about what the SFSS does. And then one day I was like, hey, why not? Why don't I go for the top? Why don't I become president? Why don't I see if I can represent people and their needs and stuff? Like, when you guys come to university and you go on the bus and everyone's got like their earbuds in and stuff like that, they're part of like this technological generation. It's like text, flash, and then forget. And people don't make meaningful connections with people. So what I'm trying to do is show you guys that the SFSS can have a human face. We can actually make students vote. We can make people care again. But to do that, we can't do it with like one-day events and stuff like that. But we got to do stuff that's gonna like affect students every single day and just constantly reinforce it. Why can't we just all work together? Like why do we have to be in a competition? We have so many talented young people in this room. Can you imagine if we actually like stopped competing for 1 second and actually just worked together as like with ACE, with Move the Mountain, like take cards and turn it into like a card mountain, like a house of cards even? Can you imagine if we did that? It would be great. But I'm too hopeful. I'm too bushy-eyed. I'm just like this average kid with not a lot of experience. And I think that we've lost like the human touch. And in the world of machines and stuff like that, I'd like you to vote for a human. Thank you.
I love the House of Cards reference. That was great. Hi everyone, my name is Brandon. I'm running to be your next presidential candidate for the Simon Fraser Student Society. The reason why I'm here today is because I love this school. This has been my home ever since I've come to SFU. I live in residence, and I know that I have a very qualified team here, and there is definitely other candidates running as well. I hope you'll vote in the election next week. I've led BD students around Canada. I've helped organize a service learning trip to Africa. I've done a ton of work as a board member. Now I'm the project manager for this one-day event that I think does hold a huge amount of value, the Simon Fraser Spring Send-Off. I have a strong team. We have a lot of plans outside of just this one event. However, my team does believe that building community is the first important thing in collective action. We need to have students that want to be on campus and want to do things in order to get those students to actually want to advocate for students. And that's why I'm here today running with ACE 2014.
Start off, question for all of you. The president sets the vision for the Student Society. Please describe your vision for the Student Society. Why don't we start with you, Alex?
Vision. Wow. I'm pretty sure you guys aren't blind, which is good. But the thing is, can you see the world from my eyes? No. You're never going to be as hopeful. You're never going to experience life as I experience it. But how can I connect with you? How can I make you feel like when someone speaks, you have to you engage in a yin and a yang. You become the listener. And right now, in this very second, we all share the exact same thought because you're listening to my words, and it's in your skulls right now in your brain. We're all sharing the collective thought. Holy crap! So with this vision, I do need to know you guys' opinions, and like I have to take a turn and I have to listen to you guys. But with like a collective movement, my vision is engaging everyone. My vision is showing people that they can all work together in a unit. I want to create jobs for everyone. I want to have coffee for everyone. I want to take the TAs and all of our teaching assistants, and I want to provide, as president, the link between like SFU adults and like the students, the average nobodies. Okay, that's what I think president is supposed to do. I think they're supposed to facilitate action. They're supposed to like do discipline. This is my vision. Together, cooperating, talking to like people in the outside world, getting kids experience. It's a pretty big vision, but for the very first step is for you guys to believe. And I don't know if you can do that. Please be as hopeful as I am and vote for someone who just has a vision but no experience. Thank you.
The vision that's been set forth by my team, not by me, is to have an excellent, accountable community created by the SFSS. What's important to us is being accountable to membership. One big piece of that is reaching out to students. Currently, we do board reports. How many of you have actually read a board report? Please put up your hand. Not bad, not bad, about 7 people out of the 40. So that's actually a high representation because you guys are here today, you actually care. I think doing individual video updates, which has already been stated by other members of my team, and this is something we will do, is to provide video updates on our social media channels, as well as email to all students every year. Every semester. This way students understand what's going on and they can very easily comment on what's happening and state whether we're doing a good job or whether we're doing a bad job. This communication will allow us to become a better student society and better represent our students. In terms of the community, my team, as well as several other members on campus, several clubs, several DSUs, there's so many groups on campus that try to build community. And a lot of them do a great job, but the problem is we're so fragmented. No one knows who's doing what, and we're not working together. This is something that the SFSS has the power to do, and I think that by leading the way, hosting the best caliber events to start, and then showing other student groups how to do these things, how to use the resources, how to deal with SFU facilities, how to deal with the general office. We need to be teaching students how to do these things, and that's the big part of community my team cares about. In terms of excellence, I'm proud to be an SFU student. I'm proud to be here sitting in front of you. I'm proud to live in residence at SFU. This school is my life. And I think every other student shouldn't feel that way. They shouldn't call this school a commuter campus. They should come up here, want to stay, and look forward to coming back when they go home. And that is really what I see as the vision for the Simon Fraser Student Society next year.
This is an excellent question. So my vision for the Student Society and the vision of the team that I'm running with is something better. It's a place where people are actually represented. It's a place where the leaders can be looked up to. We as students, as young people, we're barely voting. Our interests are not represented in government policy. I want a student society that is the change that we want to see in the world. People are disaffected. People are angry. They're jaded. Ask the average person what they think about the SFSS. I want to be a student society that changes things, that does things, that has a big picture vision. More specifically, I'd really like to engage in a large-scale consultation process with students, see what they want from us, and use that to form a 3-year vision for the Student Society. This is big picture stuff. This is food. This is tuition. These are the issues that affect students every single day. I want the Student Society to be a place that means something that is relevant to students, and not just a small minority. I want the Student Society to be a place that serves the needs of many, as opposed to the whims of a privileged few.
With the change, sorry, I missed you.
Oh.
Did I? No, I already got you.
No, I started
with
first
you.
one.
Okay, sorry. With the change in the constitution and bylaws for the Student Society, staffing is now a portfolio of the president. Currently, the Student Society is bargaining the Food and Beverage Service Collective Agreement, and the collective agreement for the resource staff will expire in the upcoming summer term. None of you have mentioned the specific collective agreement in your platform. Do you have any plans for that? Why don't we start? Charmaine.
Sure. So I think I didn't mention the collective agreement specifically in my platform, but I think a big thing in going into that is just improving the relationships with the staff at the SFSS. We had a lockout in 2011, elephant in the room. We need to discuss it. We need to improve the relationships and make our staff feel valued. The executive director of our Student Society, Colleen, has worked there for 23 years, and in her entire career at the SFSS has received one token of appreciation. This is something that needs to change. We need to treat our staff members better. We need to create a sense of purpose and teamwork with not only the board members, but the staff. And also, just specifically, I'm currently the only presidential candidate with executive experience, so I worked very closely with staff this year. Also, I've been sitting on the Labor Committee, so I'm aware of this. I think that working with our executive director, who again has 23 years of experience in the Student Society, that we can go into these agreements and do a good job and hopefully get a good deal for our employees while still respecting the interests of students as well.
Bargaining hasn't been done very well in the past by the SFSS. It's clear that we're losing a lot of money with our FBS, and I think that we need to fix that. I think that a lot of our staff do amazing work. I've worked very closely with every single one of our staff. Katie Mai is in the audience, Christina was in the audience, Lawrence, Rena, John Flipsy, Mark Fontaine. I know all these people very well. I work closely with them, and they're essential to this organization. And I think going into the bargaining side of things, as a business student coming from a very competitive background, I have the skills required to fight for you and to make sure that we are getting the best bang for our buck that you give to us, the Student Society. I hope that you'll consider voting for ACE 2014 because it will mean accountability to you. It will mean that you are getting the best bang for your buck as students, and you will be able to see firsthand the community on campus that's built by a strong Student Society. Thanks.
Okay, so what was the name of this collective agreement again?
The name of
the name of the collective agreement.
It's simply the collective agreement for Unit 3, I believe, of Local 3338.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I've never heard of this collective thing before, but in my platform, I did talk about the collective agreement for the TAs and stuff like that. That's directly in my platform. On April 30th, 2014, the agreement between like the TAs, the English language instructors, and the university expires. And I'm trying to settle that. So if there's another agreement, obviously we have tons of collective agreements that we aren't following and upholding. I'm going to try and settle it. I'm going to try and bargain. I'm going to try and get the most bang for your buck, like Brandon said. But to do that, I need to use all the resources that are available. So if you vote for me, even if you lose this election, I'm going to try and use you guys. Like, you are both great candidates. And I want to try and use you guys to the maximum extent that the SFSS can do. Okay? Thank you.
Your comment about the TSSU ties in well to one of the questions we have. You do mention the TSSU's agreement is expiring and you want to make this a focus. However, the TSSU is an organization not affiliated with the Student Society, and they would be bargaining between the TSSU and SFU. How can you insert yourself into that?
How can I insert myself into an agreement that doesn't exactly involve the SFSS? Well, isn't that what we should be doing? Isn't that what the student society should be doing, is getting involved in matters that actually affect students? You got to talk to these 10-tabled officers. You got to talk to these TAs. And I think that with the SFSS, we got a lot of power. We have a say. We take funds from students' tuition. We can have an involvement with this. But the thing is, the SFSS doesn't want that responsibility. So what I'm asking for you guys is to vote me in and give me more responsibility so we can try and solve these problems. Okay? There's obviously problems around the university, and as this body can do a lot, but we got to work together. And to insert it, that's going to be tough. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Yeah. But I think that we can do it. And we got to take on more responsibility. We just can't say, oh, I'm happy with the jobs that the president has right now. No, you always got to look bigger, brighter, for a more fantastic future of SFU. Thank you.
We have a question from the audience. This person asks, in reviewing several meeting minutes from the SFSS board, I have noticed that there is never any recognition of the meeting taking place on unceded Coast Salish territory. What are your thoughts on the inclusion of this introduction in meetings, and why do you think this has been absent in the past? Shorty, would you like to start?
Sure. So I absolutely think that this is an important thing to include. So we did earlier in this year, we did a submission to the All-Party Standing Committee on Finance, and we did an acknowledgement. But I think that the issues in the student society is that we don't talk about these substantive things. These are huge issues. These are issues that affect all of Canadian society. And I think that we need to focus on the bigger picture, things like this, and also include the voices of the many different communities at SFU. Let's acknowledge the fact that all 4 candidates that are running for president this year are white. We need to talk about these issues, and I think that having these conversations is a really important thing to do, and I absolutely support the inclusion of that at the beginning of our board meetings, and I think that we should also include that as a formal issues policy as well, because it's very important. And as my colleague Clayton pointed out, these are issues that affect all Canadians, and they affect all of our students, and it's something that's very important.
I just want to say this is the first time that I've actually heard Clay bring that up, and I think it's a great initiative. I think we should be saying that before our board meetings, because it's true that we are in Coast Salish territory. If this had been brought up earlier, I'm sure that our current president, Hamza, wouldn't have been opposed to that, and I'm not sure if Clay did bring it up with Hamza. But for me, being a presidential candidate, judging from the fact that we do have a number of First Nation students that go to SFU, I would definitely be in favor of this, especially provided that the rest of the board and the rest of the team agreed with that.
Hello again. I had no idea that we're on Coast Salish territory until today. So that just shows you how good the SFSS has done a job of telling people about these sort of issues. I only have sort of one Native friend who goes to SFU, and I do the radio station with him. Hey buddy, how's it going? We do jambalaya Fridays at 1. But yeah, he says that sort of the native outreach is actually not too bad. He's got scholarships and stuff like that. He doesn't get upset about the territory or whatever, that we're building on native land. But I'm sure that these are issues that obviously I have no idea about. And as president, I would use the avenues of already pre-existing methods of knowledge. So if I was president, I would go to Clay and I'd be like, yo, Clay, this is Coast Salish stuff. You know the most about this. I don't know that much. Can you educate me? And I'd start cooperating with my team. And then we would try and work through that. Maybe at the beginning of every meeting, we'd just be like, yo, thanks to the Salish people. And then we'd all chuckle and then we'd get in the meeting or something like that. Yeah, thank you.
Another question for all of you. What will you do for the students who don't have the privilege to participate in on-campus events? Alex, how about you start?
The students who don't have the privilege to participate in on-campus events. So commuter students then. Well, let me think. Just 1 second here. Oh, got it. If they can't participate in events that are happening on campus, we should try and like create events that they can do in between classes, and that's what free coffee is about. In between classes, people can be like, oh, the SFSS is having like a coffee event. That affects every hour, well, for my platform, one morning a week for the entire year. And people will be involved in that sort of event. Because coffee wakes you up. It is the fuel of students writing papers. It is the warmth of looking into somebody's brown eyes. It has exhibited as, it's been employed for like the leaders of like Napoleon, Voltaire, and you, yes. Coffee is the wake-up call that students need, and for students who can't participate with on-campus events, they can participate with smaller events like the coffee. So yeah, I would shift away from like large events that only like kids who live on campus would really know about, and more to like smaller events that are noticeable in everyday life. Thank you.
That's an excellent question. So I think that the purpose of the Student Society is to advocate and represent for more affordable education. The reason that people don't have the privilege to participate on campus events is because they're working 2 jobs. It's because they're struggling to make ends meet. This is why the people can't attend these events. So what we should do as a student society is focus on our founding mandate, which is to advocate for more affordable education. This is what we are created to do. We've done great things in the past. This year, as External Relations Officer, that has been my focus. And it's something that I plan to continue going forward. That is the mandate that the Move the Mound team is wanting to be elected on. So it's things like expanding the food bank program. It's getting a bursary in place for part-time students who currently don't have any needs-based funding available. It's recording workshops and lectures as well so that people can view them online from their homes. There's a variety of things that we could be doing better. And this is what my whole platform is based around, is that currently the SFSS is only serving about 10 to 20% of the students who have the ability to come up to campus, who have the money to spend on things. We need to serve everybody better. There's 30,000 of us, and I think that it's indicative of the fact, like, we only have, what was it, 2,000 people that voted for president last year, 2,500 that voted for president? That shows how much we're doing for people. That shows how much they care. We need to give them a sense of utility, let them know that we can do something for them. We're here to serve students, and all students, not just those who have the privilege to come and attend events.
Communication up at SFU sucks. We need to fix it. My team has done a great job with creating better communication for our events we're working on. The fall concert saw 1,800 students in attendance. How many advocacy events have seen that many students get together for anything? It's important to note that advocacy events are very important, but in order to have a collective action and be able to impose positive change for this campus, we need to have students involved that care about the school on campus. That's why my team is so focused on community, because we see this as the #1 concern up at SFU. Even from talking to students over the last few weeks and throughout my entire career, SFU students say they don't know what's going on. It's not a matter of them not having enough money. Obviously that's a concern as well. But you see students sitting here all the time, and they're sitting here, they're studying. They're talking to a few people they might meet that day. But do they know what's happening that night? Probably not. And that's why accountability, community, and excellence is the priority for the SFSS right now. Is advocacy important as well? Definitely. But the current state of the SFSS and the SFU community is the lack of a community. And that is what my team brings to the table.
Just want to allow for some questions between candidates. Sharday, do you have any questions?
Okay. So this one is, we'll start off with Brandon. So last week's debate, Alexander made a comment which I think we could all agree was really racist. Your reaction was to laugh. Last week, this week's debates yesterday, last week's debates, we saw candidates from your team sitting in the front row laughing, mocking people. We see in the slate, 83% of the executives you're running are male in a university where 54% of candidates, or 54% of students are female. This year on the board, you've sat idly by during numerous policy violations and said nothing. Is this your idea of accountability and excellence? And is this the kind of image that 30,000 undergraduates want to be affiliated with?
Thanks for the loaded question. There's a number of pieces to that, so I may come back to answer specific parts of your question. Initially, I'll speak to the laughing at the Surrey debate. I don't think I laughed. I definitely may have had a smirk, because I was a bit surprised at my fellow candidate's statement. However, I definitely don't think it's funny. I think we have a very diverse school, and it's clear on my slate that I think it's important to represent all types of students: international students, athletics, residents, clubs, etc. It's very clear. In terms of the number of male candidates on my executive team, I choose people based on their experience and their ability to do the job. I don't try to find people that I think will make me look good. I try to find people that will do the job best. And that's what a leader does. A leader finds people that will work hard for students, not make themselves look good. And that's what I'm about. Your next part of your question was, which? Do you mind reminding me?
So all the policy violations that have gone down this year.
Right, so the last board meeting, Charday brought up a point about a board retreat the board went on, which Charday attended last August. I'm open to students and I'm honest about everything that I do, so I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. We went on a board retreat in August to my brother's place in Tofino. The cost for the whole board was approximately $2,000. That's about 14 students, I think it was 12 of us that went, approximately. That included travel, accommodation, etc. The reason we stayed at my brother's place was because we got a better deal. Other board members looked into the costs, and I actually have several emails to me from other board members who looked into the costs and outlined that this place was definitely the best option. So in terms of the policy infraction in which Charday is referring to, this was a couple months into my term, and I apologize that I may have voted on this, but my vote wouldn't have made a difference. It was almost a unanimous decision other than one abstention by a board member. And for that reason, I think bringing this up is clearly mudslinging as opposed to focusing on what I myself do as a candidate and what she does as a candidate. Thank you.
So thank you for owning up to that. So that was admirable, and I'm really glad. I'm also wondering, so in terms of like other policy violations this year, so in December we had our treasurer tried to pay out the stipends for the entire board without doing the requisite hours of work. We've constantly violated policies about not having office hours, inappropriate use of society supplies. All year, I've been bringing these issues up. It's made me the bad cop, and at the last debates you said that you didn't get along with me. You know, this is the reason. These are the things. Where is your accountability? Where were the questions that you were raising about these constant breaking of rules? Where is the accountability there?
While I appreciate how well you know the policy manual, I think that representing students is more about memorizing policies. I think it's about representing them fairly and effectively. I myself follow the policies to the best of my ability, and if I make a mistake here and there, I'm very easily going to say it and learn from it. And I think it's clear that I've done that throughout the year. In terms of you bringing up problems throughout the year, I just find it interesting the timing in which you bring up these incidents, such as the last one you brought at the board meeting. It's like you bring up a problem that happened in August, right during election period. Looks a little bit shady to me, a little bit self-interested, rather than looking out for the best interests of students.
You've been pretty respectful and quiet about this. Do you have anything to say with regards to this?
Yes, hello. Okay, so apparently I made a comment saying that the average Surrey student was brown. This was just sort of honesty, like not racism. Okay, all right. It's just what I saw. South Asian students were the most involved. Okay, that's who I saw as being engaged in the South Surrey campus. And it's just honesty, and that's what I am. I think Coyote, you should vote for him. He says it best. Like he's got this rap. He says you can vote for this or you can vote for that. You can vote for people who have had experience and like they're just messing around. Okay, they're doing the House of Cards political game, right? If you want a genuine, honest candidate with like a flawless background, vote for me. I'm not trying to be racist. I'm trying to be honest. And if that offends some people, please tell me. I'm trying to get engaged. And apparently it's offended people, so I'd like to apologize. Thank you.
Charday, back to you.
Sure. So just to your point, and I like the House of Cards reference again, twice coming up in this debate. I've raised policy violations and things that are clearly wrong. It is clearly wrong to pay out stipends when you haven't done the hours of work. That is clearly wrong. These are not memorizing a policy manual. These are things that you have a fiduciary duty to do. You have a legal obligation to follow the rules and regulations of an organization. As president of this, it's a $5 million a year organization. You should know the policies. You have a legal obligation to do so. And as I said, I raise these issues as soon as they've come up. I have a proven track record of being accountable and holding people account to the rules which are in place to ensure that we are transparent and accountable. And we've seen all these issues this year. And I'm raising them as soon as I see them, because that's what I've done, and that's what a leader is supposed to do.
You seem to really only have one example, which was the Wardo West example of the retreat back in August. But yet, you keep mentioning stipends. Personally, I've done more than my fair share of hours this year. I've done probably more work than any other farm member throughout the year that's been recorded. There's been other board members who have done a ton of work as well. However, I don't really understand why you keep focusing on stipends when this job isn't really about the money.
In December, the treasurer paid out for the entire board the stipends, and many people hadn't done the requisite hours of work, which is a clear violation of our policies. I raised that because that is wrong. Nobody else, with the exception of Gloria, said anything. That's what I'm raising. That is a specific example. All year we've seen board of directors who don't have office hours posted. You know, things like this. It's constant and clear violations of our policies all the time. I've been the one saying things, and this is why I've been the odd man out. I've been the policy cop this year, but I'm doing my due diligence. What about you?
I think a president should be more than a policy cop. I think a president should be leading a team of experienced individuals who really care about this school, who represent the various diverse needs of the school. I think Charmaine has found some good candidates. I think she's found some candidates last minute. But at the end of the day, I want to see the strongest student society possible next year in order to best represent you, the students. I'm not doing this because I want to get a job as a politician down the road. I'm doing this because I really care about this school, and it's clear through my past experience and my team that we all really do. And that's why we're here today, is to represent you, and hopefully you'll consider voting ACE 2014.
All right, well, enough with the mudslinging. I'd like to ask some real debate questions, because that's why we're here. We're supposed to be arguing about the platforms, not about the people, not about the past, but we're looking to the future, not the problems of the past, okay? So my first question is to Brandon. All right, so you've been to Royal Military College, sir. You've worked with the charter fishing company, Blackberry. So you've got a lot of experience. Do you think this is a step down to be like coming to SFU? Like why are you looking for a job with us when you can get a job with Blackberry or going to the Army? Like, why haven't you stuck around with one thing? Why are you jumping all over the place?
My story is definitely an interesting one, and I'm glad you asked this question. I seek opportunity through passion. And for me, my past experiences have been through passion. I went to the military college because I was interested in being a pilot. I didn't get the opportunity to go to aircrew selection and be able to sign a contract as a pilot, and I wasn't willing to sign that contract for anything else, and that's why I came back to SFU. In terms of my co-op experience, I actually was seeing a girl out in Ontario when I came back to SFU, and so I got the job at Blackberry to spend more time with the girlfriend at the time. And it's a funny reason why I did it, but anyway, when I came back to SFU after my term at Blackberry, I've been here and building community with wonderful people like these people in the front row here, Sharina Skarcha, Zia, Darwin, Clay. Honestly, all these people really care about this school. And since I've come back, I've been able to build a solid team, and that's why I'm running this election. It's because it's where my passion lies at this current point in time, and it's because this is my home, and I really feel that this is the next step with my team.
Okay, so a counter rebuttal. You led a team of 50 business students, correct, in Saskatchewan, where I'm from, born in Saskatoon, thank you. And so you did a business competition with 50 students. Did you win?
Unfortunately, we didn't win. We've since grown from that, and actually we placed a top academic team a couple years ago. The SFU business community is outstanding. The community we have within the faculty is really, really admiring, And although I'm quite biased as a business student, I really do think that a lot of the processes and the things that we do within the business faculty should be modeled by some other faculties, because we really do have a strong business community and also a strong community in residence. Now, why I'm running for president is because I want to see that community built outside of these two areas, as well as continue to build up the strong community within the residence community and the business community.
Can I ask a few questions for Sade now? Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Brandon, would you like to ask a question?
Sure. So, my question will go towards Sade, surprisingly. This year, we've had a pretty divided board. It's evident in meeting minutes that you're opposed to projects that other board members work on, such as the fall kickoff concert and the spring send-off concert. These are two of the largest events the school has seen in a long time. As your slate is largely inexperienced, how do you expect that you can accomplish your goals working together to influence positive change for our students when you can't even work with a board of experienced individuals who have shown their dedication to the school?
Okay, lots of questions there. So first off, absolutely not opposed to the idea of concert. In fact, when it was first proposed at the board, I voted in favor. What I am opposed to is end running things and having untransparent financials. I'm also opposed to things that can't be accessed by all students. And in terms of inexperienced people, I would point out that Move the Mountain has 3 current board members. We have a variety of people who have different levels of experience. We have the average SFU student represented. We have students based out of Surrey. We have students who are international students, domestic students, commuter students. We're trying to represent various different groups. And in terms of not being able to work with the board, I just think that that's simply not true. I've reached out and tried to get advocacy involved into the spring concert because I think it's a great venue to meet with students. We've done many projects and initiatives together, such as splitting the university relations officer's duties. And in terms of working with other board members, tons have sat on advocacy, have sat on the Constitution and Policy Review Committee. We've accomplished tons this year together. I don't think it's fair to say that I didn't work with the board. I've definitely held it accountable, and I think that some of the accusations that are coming across to you is the fact that I've done my due diligence and held people accountable. I've called them in when they've done things wrong in doing my duties, which are legally imposed on a board of directors.
Very political response. So you didn't quite answer my question in that your executive team members, a number of them haven't really been involved with the SFSS to a large extent, and they're currently running. I think it's clear to those of us that were in debates today that some of these candidates don't have the experience to run in this election to win and to represent students well. I'm not personally attacking them. I think they're great people, and I think they definitely are integral parts of the community. What I'm getting at is the fact that candidates should have experience in order to represent 30,000 students up at SFU. That's all I'm saying.
Would you like to respond?
I can just really quickly. So I think that's an interesting point, and I would just encourage people, vote for who you feel is going to represent you best. We're not a political party. You don't have to vote for all of us. Vote for who you feel is going to represent you best. We got like-minded people together, people who want to see change, people who want to see real inclusion. We got people involved who otherwise wouldn't have felt included or even safe, I would say, in the SFSS currently. We're trying to represent all interests, but by all means, Brandon, if you don't like the people we put on our executive team, don't vote for them.
I work with people I trust will build community, not those that will make me look good. That's all.
Alex, question for Sade.
Yeah, okay. So Sade, your platform says that you're going to be putting money into the pockets of the average student. But one of the things you specifically outline is increasing childcare funding from $5 to $10. I don't claim childcare. How is that putting money back into my pocket? Like how are you going to put money into the average student, not someone who's claiming childcare?
Fantastic. So the childcare piece was just a whole kind of plethora of ideas. I think that that's a really important one. Childcare, we only currently give $5 an hour through the SFSS, but there's lots of ways. So I think increasing funding that the SFSS puts into bursaries is really key. We only put $20,000 in this year. We could do more. Spent $5,000 on office furniture. We could put that extra money into bursaries for students that need them. Currently, only 83% of the demand for domestic students for bursaries is being met. That number is 30% for international students. People who qualify as in financial need aren't getting the bursaries that they need. That should be a priority for us. We should also advocate for the creation of a part-time bursary. Currently at SFU, you have to be taking at least 9 credits to get funding. That seems strange to me because many students can't afford to take full-time classes. That's why they're not doing so. Other universities have that. Also think we should expand the food bank program to help out students in need that way. And finally, let's advocate for affordable education. Let's oppose tuition increases. Let's lower student loan interest rates. Let's get needs-based grants. These are things that help every single student at SFU, and this is the founding mandate of the Student Society. That's how we put money back in students' pockets.
Okay. The next thing you have is lobbying with TransLink. Okay. So do you know who Evan Gervais is, or Hayden Atchison, or Kathy McKay? Do you know who those people are in TransLink?
I'm assuming they sit on the board of TransLink.
Yes.
Yeah.
How are you going to be in contact with them, though? Like, you say you're going to, like, lobby them. For your methods of communication, do you have, like, phone calls? Have you established a rapport? And in your past, with your experience, have you actually gone and talked with the adult world to lobby this sort of stuff? This is my question to you.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So we met with senior service planners about SFU route issues specifically. So trying to get a stop at Princess at Hastings Street for the students using the 611 Alexander studio space. Next week we're meeting with Mayor Moore to hopefully talk about the Burnaby Mountain Gondola. We've attended numerous transit stakeholder meetings. I was out in Coquitlam last week and informed TransLink that peak hour service for the 143 30 years from now is just not going to cut it, because it doesn't cut it now. This has been a huge area, and like actually there was a downtown transit stakeholders meeting today which I was supposed to attend but came to the debates instead, so a GSS rep went for us. So lots of conversations about transit with TransLink, but also elected officials, people like our MLAs, and meeting with mayor soon given the new structure of the TransLink board.
Just want to do a few more audience questions, and then we'll get back to candidate questions again. One for Brandon. You say you want specifically to lead the board and the students. What about students who want a voice?
I think all students need to be able to voice their opinion, and the SFSS needs to have better communication with the student body for them to voice that opinion. It's clear through talking to students that they don't really even know what the SFSS is or what we actually do. And that's why my board has made accountability as one of the 3 pillars that we want to fix. I've already given one example in that we should be giving video updates on social media. That's just one. I think the attendance at clubs days this year shows that it needs to be mandatory for board members, and I'm glad to see that CPR has changed that based on recommendation from Mocha Pahe, the current member services officer. At the end of the day, all students should feel like the SFSS is representing them well, but the fact is if they don't know what the SFSS is, it's hard for them to advocate or feel like they're represented.
Alex, have you in any way at all looked into the feasibility of doing the free coffee thing? Met with the FBS manager, maybe talked to Chartwells, or are you just making empty promises?
No, I have actually looked at some of the business owners. So there's at Nature's Garden at 604-299-0552, Bill and Dolores, you should talk to Dolores, are people I'm going to be in dialogue with. For Renaissance Coffee, I'm going to be talking with Parminder Parhar. For Nestor's Market, the cafe, I'm going to be talking to the manager, Eric. And yeah, these are some of the things that I'm looking into right now. Yeah, but back to Parminder. This is a guy who wants to create a community and a voice for people. Like, do you guys know what he's done? He's like given so much money to like organizations, to health organizations. This is a great guy. This is someone who should definitely be involved with the SFSS. So these are the types of the pathways of dialogue that I'm going to use to engage my free coffee campaign. Thank you.
Sade, question from the audience. In terms of the privileged few you've referred to whom benefit from the SFSS, who are these students, besides those interested in attending large-scale events? From my understanding, the SFSS does more than just one concert a semester.
Well, I think I should point out that anybody who's at university is really privileged. That's something that majority of the population doesn't have access to. So we're all really lucky to be here. We've all come from circumstances that allow us to do so. But I think that in terms of the people who are not being represented well and the people who I'm referring to as privileged, like so many students, they're working 2 jobs. They're incurring tens of thousands of dollars in student loan debt. They're taking 12 credits while they're working 2 jobs and stuff like that. Like, these are the people that we're not serving very well. If you don't have the time to go and sit on committee meetings or attend events or spend money, these are the people that I'm talking about. We need to do more for these folks, because I think we do a great job of engaging with about 10 to 20% of students, but what about the other 80%? These are the same 80% that aren't voting in our elections. These are the same 80% that we keep hearing about in the debates that don't know about the Student Society. Well, if there's nothing in it for them, why would they participate? When you're working 2 jobs, taking all these credits, and trying to make ends meet, why would you participate in a student society that does nothing for you?
Brandon, one of the core pillars of ACE is community. What if I don't think an EDM concert is community? Concert attendance is about 2,000 people. What do you plan on doing for the other 24,000 students?
As has been stated by many members of my slate, there's a wide variety of things we want to focus on next year. Community is a high-level piece. Build SFU is one project that I'm quite passionate about, and it's been clear through my involvement with the project that I really think this is going to help be a game changer to this campus, because it'll be a student-owned and operated building that we can actually fix the campus with. Of course, Build SFU won't be ready by next year, and that's why my team is focused on a wide variety of things, such as holding debates and conferences, as Patrick Popa has stated earlier today. At the end of the day, we want to be able to outreach to students first and hear what they want to have happen, in addition to the big events. We've seen the big events are successful. We know the students want them. We're going to continue with that if elected. On the other side of things, we want to make sure we're addressing whatever the rest of the students need and giving them the events that they want. And it's clear that my team is well representative of the student body, and that's why we're running together. It's because we want to make sure that all students are represented well.
Alex, you wish to condense clubs with overlapping mandates and have specifically drawn attention to Christian clubs the Student Society supports. How do you decide which ones have overlapping mandates?
Well, this is a giant, tricky, very tricky. Did I mention that it's tricky to figure this sort of thing out? If you've got overlapping mandates, okay, so let's take my 2 competitors right here. They've got overlapping mandates. So how are we going to decide who has got the better idea, okay? So if I'm in a course union, and let's say, for the Christian clubs, we've got Catholicism and Protestantism. How are we going to bind them? I'm sorry, this is just Christian terms anyway. We'd start on the very basics and say, okay, you guys believe in God, right? You believe in voting. Okay, you believe in the sort of general overview, and then from there we'd sort of build up until we had a completely streamlined merge thing. And if it's completely intolerable to merge the 2 clubs, then we wouldn't streamline them, and we would have to remain as separate clubs. Yes, thank you.
Sade, your platform includes pushing SFU to pursue non-financially optimal investment strategies based on ethical grounds by urging divestment from fossil fuels, opposition to tuition increases, and pushing SFU to become a living wage employer. This summarized asks for SFU to reduce revenues while increasing costs. Is this viable to ask of the university that faces annual cutbacks? If push comes to shove, which of these would you drop first?
That's a really good question. So for starters, I think the reason that we need to tackle these things from multiple angles. So the fact that the province is cutting $16 million from advanced education the next year, that's a problem. We need to address that. We need to address the deferred maintenance issues. We need to take that piece on. But at the same time, in our own house, in our own campus, we can't be doing things like supporting working poverty. We can't be supporting the destruction of our environment. These are moral imperatives. And with the divestment campaign, it's a 5-year pullout. With living wage, it's investigating the feasibility. I don't think that it's reasonable to come up and say we expect you to do these things right now. But I think that we have a duty as students, as leaders of tomorrow, to ask better of our university, to make these things that we need to do to improve our society. As I've said before, I want to be a leader. I want to have a student society that is the change that we want to see in the world. It's not doing more of the same to destroy our environment, to further issues of poverty. And in terms of which one I drop first, I'm taking a principled stand to these things. So I'm not going to drop in opposition to environmental destruction. I'm not going to drop in opposition to living wage poverty. These are moral issues. These are things that we as leaders need to be taking a stand on. So that's my answer there. But also you need to address the issues of the provincial funding, which I talk about also in my platform. Affordable education, rah, rah, rah.
Let's go back to candidate questions. Would you like to start?
Sure. It's been clear that, Shardy, you blame the current board for the current state, lack of communication within their internal board members. I do think that a lot of the projects that advocacy works on are notable and worthwhile. However, the attendance at these events shows that the community needs to be built better. And that's why my team is focusing on that. So my question to you is, if elected, I didn't really see much in your platform about community and how you would build it up in order to get students to your events, as well as to advocate for students. So how do you specifically think, what are you going to do different from this year, where you didn't get many students to attend, to next year? Does that make sense?
No.
Okay, let me clarify. This year, you did not get a lot of students to your events, which were advocacy events. If you want to represent students, they should be at your events, and they should be supporting you. So if you were to be president of the Student Society, how are you going to get these students to care about what you're doing and support what you're doing if you couldn't do it this year?
Okay, well, I don't think it's fair to say that students didn't go out to our events. There was a couple that didn't have huge attendance, but people still came. In terms of going forward, these are all brand new initiatives. Things like financial literacy and student governance 101, they don't sound sexy. We've got to get the word out about these things. They're really valuable. So we've done things like record them so that they're available online. And also we really need to let our staff do their job and also give them the resources that they need. So in our communications office, it's pretty overworked. We need to enable our staff to do a better job, improve relationships with them. We also need to have a vision for our student society, which comes directly from students. The feedback that I always get from staff is that they don't exactly know what to prioritize, they don't know where to go. So we need to have a vision and a clear communications plan. So I think that, yeah, communications is key, but I think that there's more to that. It's about big picture strategy and vision. And also in terms of blaming the board, I don't necessarily think that that's the case. I think that there's a lot of stuff that we as a board could have done better this year. I think that there's stuff that other previous boards could have done better. I think that there's a lot of stuff that we've done really good. And so I'm just trying to build on that and just bring some big picture vision and strategy into the SFSS. And that's what I bring as leader. And I think that that's been pretty clear from what I've said today.
I just think that the leader of a student society of this size should be solving problems and not simply complaining about things. And I think that a lot of the work that's been done this year, although admirable, hasn't necessarily solved many problems, but more so just raised awareness of them. It's been effective to some extent, but I think that we need to be focusing on the community aspect before we start building on the advocacy events.
Okay, so Brandon, you're all about community, right? Okay, but I don't check my emails. I don't look at posters. I see them, I just walk by. I don't care. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna set up a table in the middle of like the AQ hallways where all the students are walking by and, hey, meet the president? Like, are you gonna do stuff like that? Like, how are you going to be directly one-on-one engaged with the average student who is like me, who doesn't know what the SFS is? What are you gonna do, specifically? Very specific.
Sure. Specifically, I have a lot of relationships with students because I actually go out and talk to them all the time because I am a student myself and I feel that I should always be out talking to students. In terms of the vision for next year, I think that should be the way that all board members think, is that we should be in the office only maybe like 30 to 40% of the time. We should be out there and actually doing things with most of our time. And that's the way that I think the student society can honestly better represent the students, is to be out there, speaking to students, asking them what they want and getting that feedback. The SFSS has sometimes been involved with the welcome back. We always do our clubs days. I think we should have a better presence at the welcome back. Kickoff was a great event this year we did in order to raise the awareness of the SFSS. I've seen pages and pages and pages of positive feedback from students who now know what the SFSS is. But I agree, one-on-one interaction is by far the best, and if elected as president, I don't expect I would be sitting in the office, that's for sure.
Response?
So you say you're not going to be in the office. Okay, so that's student engagement for community. Now I want to ask you about the other half of the president job, which is the adult world. Do you know who runs out on campus? Do you know who runs the SFPIRG? Do you know who runs the CGSF? Do you know who runs the Highland Pub? Like, can you name all those managers for me? That's 4. Can you do that?
Sure, do you want to give me the 4 again real quick?
Okay, CGSF, who is it?
I work with David Swanson.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, yeah, okay. A Highland Pub?
John Flipsy with, actually I guess you would say Daryl. Daryl would be the manager of it, but John Flipsy oversees.
He's doing good so far. Okay, the SFPIRG?
I don't work that closely with SFPIRG, and I definitely need to focus on that next year.
Okay. Community. And out on campus?
Samonte.
Very good. Okay, so 3 out of 4, 75% community involvement. That's pretty good, guys.
For Charday, sure. Yeah.
Okay, Charday. Okay, so your platform says ethical sponsorship for funding. What exactly is ethical sponsorship? Can you elaborate very specifically from that?
I would love to. The SFSS has a policy. It's called AP 15. It clearly lays this out. So it gives preference to Canadian-based companies, unionized companies, those that don't do environmental harm, and also those that, unionized, so those that pay their staff a living wage.
Okay.
Is it a response to the question? I'd like to give Charday a chance to ask questions.
Okay, no, there's no response. Go ahead, Charday.
Sure. So another one for Brandon. Last week at the debates, I asked what you'll do to help students who are struggling financially. 47% of SFU students are going to graduate with debt. The average debt at SFU is $26,000. Your response was to tell them about the services that exist. So as I pointed out earlier, 83% of domestic students have financial need which is not met through bursaries, 30% for international students. These folks are now going to be seeing a 10% a year tuition increase for the next 3 years. What do you say to the student who knows about bursaries, who knows about student loans and can't pay their rent or needs to access a food bank? What do you say to them? Do you just tell them, refer to them back to the bursary program, or?
I think the increase in international student fees is definitely different than, say, an average student who's domestic, because they're already paying an extraordinary amount of money as is, and to see it increase this amount is outrageous, especially considering I, as a board member, didn't even find out about this until it was announced that it was happening. The consultation wasn't very well advertised. This goes to show that SFU needs to improve its communication just as much as the SFSS has to. In terms of average students and how they can help go to school affordably, I personally owe money to the government. I have student debt myself. I've put myself through school. There's a number of students in the same position as me. However, I want to empower students to not only work hard, but in order to meet their goals without needing grants, without needing these things. Some people definitely need them, and that's why the system is in place, so that students that have the most need or the highest level of need will get the bursaries, and that's why that system is in place. I don't think by giving everyone free money is a realistic representation of how the world is. I think the world is a dog-eat-dog world out there, and everyone earns what they get. However, I do think that we need to make sure that there is enough funds available for those that really do need it. When I'm talking about need, I'm not talking about a student that just simply wants to sit in their room and play a video game. I'm talking about the student that has a kid. I'm talking about the student that has financial difficulties because a family member has passed away. I'm talking about serious financial difficulty here. These students need to be able to access these funds, and I'm confident that SFU really cares about these students and honestly has been doing a good job. Is there a lack of funding? Yes, there definitely is, and that's always a problem. But we need to be realistic and set goals that are realistic and not just simply demand things from people.
I think the vast majority of SFU students are struggling financially, and I think that they would strongly disagree with you when you say that their need is not real.
Brandon, in your platform, you said that you plan to break down the university barriers to hosting student-led events on campus by working with university administration and the Student Society General Office staff. What kind of barriers do you see, and how do you plan on working with the university and society staff in breaking them?
The biggest problem is that every year the Student Society elects new people. And with these new people come people with different relationships with the university staff. Personally, I would say I have some of the best relationships with the university administration. I see this positive because they actually want to help. They actually care about the things that I'm working on, and they care about the students here. And the number one thing I hear from them is that they feel the students don't communicate with them. So you can see it's a two-way disconnect where the SFU feels the students don't care and the students feel that SFU doesn't care. My goal is to make that better. It's already been proven that this university cares about the initiatives that I'm focused on, and as well as anything the SFSS wants to work on. They really do care about us. The problem is that communication is terrible, and that is why accountability is the first thing that's on our platform. We really think that SFU needs to be more accountable to students, and we as the elected representatives can fix that. And that's what my team, ACE 2014, is all about.
Did you have more questions, Alex, I think?
Absolutely, I have more questions. Okay, so you guys, do you have jobs right now? Like, are you making money right now? Do you have enough money for rent next month?
I have student loans.
Yeah, well, I don't. I've been borrowing money from, like, my parents. I'm so broke, man. I actually need this job. I'm serious. I'm not gonna be able to pay rent next month. I barely had enough food for this month. This is like, these pants are the only nice pants that I own. I don't own the nice suits like you, Mr. Go to the Yacht Club. I don't have nice dresses and jewelry. I'm serious. I'm pretty broke. So what kind of jobs are you gonna create for me? The poor kid.
That was for me, I take it. First of all, these clothes actually ended up costing me less than 120 bucks. I tend to go to thrift stores. My little brother is a really good shopper, and he helps me find stuff for affordable prices. And it's thanks to him that I can actually look good for low cost. So thanks to my little brother, Nick. In terms of jobs, the SFSS does create student jobs. Personally, what my team has talked about and what I really think is necessary is more outreach, and it's clear that community is a big part of our platform. So specific jobs that I would like to create include an outreach coordinator for Surrey, an outreach coordinator for downtown, as well as potentially working with our FBS staff to work at getting an outreach coordinator within the FBS. There currently is a job there, who that person was since released a few years ago, but we need to build our outreach, and that's clear. So specifically, there's 3 jobs that I'm intending on bringing forward if I'm elected.
Okay, that's very good. Okay, I've got a question here for Sade. The president has to focus on sort of the goals of the SFU adult staff. So do you know any of the goals that Andrew Petier has come up with? Like, he's got quite a few plans. Do you know any of them? Go for it.
Engaging the world. No, I'm just kidding. They want to increase international student enrollment. They want to make SFU a leading comprehensive university. So I can't cite like the specific things, but I know that it's about engaging the world. I know we hear that a lot, but I think that's the plan.
Brandon, do you have any more questions?
No, I think it's pretty clear.
Okay. Sade, do you have any more questions?
No, I'm good.
I assume you do?
I have tons of questions. This is a debate.
One more.
One more, okay. Oh shoot, what do I ask here? Okay. With the SFSS so far, this goes to both of you. What is the momentum that you're gonna keep going on from Hamza Khan's regime? What sort of continuities are you gonna keep moving forward with, like momentum-wise, for both of you?
Ladies first.
Okay. Well, I think that, and as Brandon has pointed out, that the fall concert raised the profile of the SFSS. I think that particularly like students earlier on in their careers, I think that got them more involved. So I think it would be really great, and I'm glad that this has come up earlier in the debate, to integrate advocacy initiatives into social events. So in the spring concert, Advocacy is going to have a table there, get people to sign postcards to send to the Premier saying that we want more affordable education. So I think that there's a really great opportunity for synergy going forward. There has been some buzz generated, there has been more momentum being created from that, so I think if we could build on that and integrate it into the more substantive goals of the student society, which is affordable education, I think that that would be really positive.
Thanks for the question, Alex. I think it's quite clear that the profile of the SFSS has been increased this year. Seeing this many people at debates, it's a lot more than last year. There's obviously a lot of work that many board members have done to help get to where we are today, but Hamza has done a great job of actually increasing the profile through these events that he kind of started. I think it's a good way to keeping these things going is definitely important, but as my team has mentioned earlier, there's a lot of other avenues that we wish to focus on next year in order to keep students involved and make them proud to be SFU students and want to be involved with the SFSS.
All right, let's move on to closing statements. We started with Sade, so let's start with Brandon.
Forget what page it's on, so I'm just going to wing it. This is my school. It's been my home for so many years. I love SFU. I am passionate about this school. I'm passionate about my team. I'm passionate about what everyone here in this room can possibly do. If you think you can do something at SFU, you can. You just need to find the right people, talk to them, and make it happen. I have proven experience to show that I can do this myself, and I've empowered a phenomenal team to run in this election. A number of which already intended on running. A number of them decided to join the slate because they believed in the power of the Student Society and what we can accomplish for you, students. Accountability, community, excellence. It sounds like three big terms, but please read the platforms, please vote in the election, and please choose the people who are experienced and are going to positively make a change at the school. Thank you.
Hello, students. We've been talking to the people who are in this room for so long now, so I'm gonna try and talk to the people who are in the interweb. I'm Alexander Morris. I'm just a regular average kid. I've got three main things for my platform: free coffee 1 day a week, solve the collective agreement that expires on April 30th, 2014, like really soon, and then finally create 250 new jobs. If you want a fresh face compared to these sort of old competition, these old people, you should vote for me. And then the second, for everyone in the room right here, you don't have to vote for your slate, okay? If you vote for me, I want to engage every single one of you because you've shown yourself to be engaged. You've shown yourself to be passionate. I want to make you guys involved, and if you actually do care about the SFSS, you should vote for me. I want to use your talents and abilities. I want to create a collective movement for the SFSS. And that goes for you, Brendan. That goes for you, Sade. That goes for Mrs. Slater, who did not even attend both the debates. I want to use as many resources as we can to create a new community for SFU and to get people involved, to get students to vote. So if you do want to make a difference, if you want to change the world, rah, 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 vote Alexander. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I know it's been a long afternoon. Thanks to the IC. I really enjoyed this conversational style. I think that's really great. So yeah, I guess just to give just talk to myself a little bit. I'm the only candidate up here that has experience as an executive officer of the Student Society. I have done a ton of stuff that I think was really helpful this year. Working with Gloria and Dylan, I helped lead the creation of a food bank program. I've done a ton of advocacy around affordable education, which has been really effective, getting recommendations to the Ministry of Finance. I've also been the sole board member working to reduce the cost of the Build SFU project's financing. This is millions and millions of dollars I'm working to save students. But enough about that. To be honest with you, I'm here because I'm fed up. I'm sick of not being represented. I'm sick of buzzwords and scripted presentations and talking points. I'm sick of people who think that the rules don't apply to them. I want a student society that fixes the problems that we see in the world. I want a student society where we can call one another in. I think I've shown today that I have a real vision, that I'm qualified, and that I care so much. For me and for the Move the Mountain team, this isn't about student government. This isn't about SFU even necessarily. It's about changing the world. It's about making it a place that we want to live in. It's about doing good things for people that are going to benefit them while they're at SFU, after they graduate, for the rest of their lives. We want to change society, we want to change the world, and we want to move the mountain.
Yeah!
Thank you very much, candidates. So this concludes the debates for the 2014 SFSS general election. Voting starts next week from Tuesday to Friday, so check your SFU email. Thank you everybody for taking the time out of their day to come, and thank you for everyone who's watching online.
regardless of what.
Awesome job, Trey. Thank you. You as well.
Oh, really good. That's good. Yeah. Okay. So hold on. They said something like just briefly passing. Did you fail? I failed. Like running? No. Oh, and you just.
No, it was a different girl. She'll come back.
Good job.